Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 5 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Leave of absence. The recent success of the Autobots and Black Knights in your mission has certainly turned some heads. 0. General Smil is said to the hologram of the masked revolutionary as he sat in his office. I would hope so. 0 responded. The main line of the Euro-Britannian forces have been pushed back. However, I fear this may be a faux victory. Smil is said with concern. News of the Decepticons' presence in Euro-Britannia is not to be taken lightly. Believe me General Smil is, I'm more than aware of the damage they are capable of. 0 replied. But we will have the means to remove the Decepticons from the region. I wish I had your confidence. Smil is muttered before getting back on track. What is the status Major Malkal, as well as the WZERO and your own units? The Autobots have all returned to Castle Weisswolf and have taken the nightmares with them to be repaired and receive any necessary modifications. 0 answered. My Black Knights as well as Layla's soldiers are still here with me in Warsaw getting rest. We will be returning to base shortly. Understood. I will contact you again should anything else arise. Smil is nodded. Thank you General. 0 said before his hologram vanished. Smil gave a slight sigh as he leaned back against his chair. He would be a fool to get his hopes up. He knew 0 understood the Decepticons, but he too understood what they were capable of. They destroyed the entire Britannian Empire in less than a year, and they were the most advanced superpower on their planet. If they were allied with Euro-Britannia, it may be only a matter of time before the EU suffers a similar fate, especially if the cowardly politics were to fall apart as he expected. But, perhaps 0 and Layla being together could serve as a symbol to unite the people. Both were such important figures in the world, Layla being the daughter of Brado von Breisgau, and 0 the masked hero who stood among titans. And if something were to happen to them, not only would they serve as excellent martyrs for the people of the EU, but perhaps a means to bring the Autobots and Black Knights to his side and create a new European empire. Horai Island, the bridge of the Ark. Optimus Prime had received a full report from Elita 1 of all that had transpired in the EU since the arrival of hers and 0's team, meeting with General Smil and Layla, working alongside the WZERO and their newest recruits, and their most recent mission. The presence of the Decepticons in Euro-Britannia is unfortunate but not unexpected. Optimus commented after hearing the last of the report. But my greatest concern is this Shin Hyuga Shang character and how he apparently wields a Geass of his own. Sarah says she didn't give it to him, and I believe her. Elita told him. The only other suspect would be VV, but she's not 100% sure it's him either. I'm honestly hoping that it is him, because if it isn't, it would mean there is someone else who can grant the ability of a Geass. Optimus knew the many complications that could arise from that. I will have Wizard and Cornelia look into Shin's background to see if we can find any information that could give us some answers. Good. Akito may be Shin's younger brother, but I do not think he's going to give us any solid answers. Elita said. Just looking at him made the poor kid freeze, so I don't think there's any sibling love there. What about Oz's inquiry regarding Claus and Smil? Wizard's connections through Peace Mark are working as speak. Optimus replied. Should we find anything, you and Lelouch will be notified immediately. Thank you, Elita out. She signed off, leaving Optimus alone on the bridge until he heard the door open behind him and turned around to see the group consisting of Nunnally, Shirley, Millie, Rivals, Nina, Misty, and even Alice enter the bridge. Hey Optimus, was that Elita? Shirley asked first. How are things going with Lelouch and the others? They appear to be doing well at the moment. Optimus explained. The Decepticons appear to be in Euro-Britannia, but our own forces have the situation under control. He saw expressions of worry on the former student council members change into relief. While they were all quite concerned with the Decepticons, they knew their friends could handle themselves. He then noticed the reserved expression on Alice's face, an awkward attempt to avoid eye contact with the large Autobot. Alice, I am glad to see you are up and about. Alice was briefly surprised by that. The Autobot leader just greeted her. And in a friendly tone of voice no less. Yes, I'm well, thank you. She turned around as she nervously tugged on her own hair. It's okay Alice. Nunnally put a hand on the girl's shoulder. You don't have to be so stiff around him. Yeah, Optimus here is the coolest bot around. You got nothing to worry. Rivals added as well. The Autobot leader understood Alice's nerves. Based on what he heard from Nunnally, the poor girl had practically spent most of her life in the Geass Order, repeatedly experimented on to further enhance her physical senses and abilities, and that's not even considering the possible horrors she experienced and saw at the hands of Shockwave. Alice was reserved with nearly everyone she saw, human and Autobot alike. The only one she seemed to be comfortable around was Nunnally, and whoever else was with her to an extent, including the former student council. There was no way to describe the pity Optimus felt for the poor girl on what she had already experienced, but he was nonetheless glad that Nunnally was helping her to come out of her shell bit by bit. So, what were you and Alita talking about, Optimus? Millie asked in a slightly teasing tone. She was informing of our progress in the EU. So far it would seem everything is proceeding smoothly, despite a few unexpected surprises. Optimus informed. Oh, is that all? She continued to tease. Is there something you wish to know in particular? Optimus asked. Well, we heard how the two of you had quite a history on Cybertron. Millie replied, the look in her eyes not fading. Now you here together on Earth, fighting for the same cause of freedom and justice. But, that's not all you're fighting for, is it? Alita is a capable soldier and commander, as well as a good friend. I am indeed glad she is here. Optimus noted. Millie's look of teasing morphed into comic disappointment. Oh, come on. You are just no fun. We did try to tell you, Millie. Nunnally said with a wincing smile. Yeah, this kind of thing won't work with him. Shirley added. Even I could see that. I used to be the most socially conscious of the group. Nina added, which only made Millie sulk even further. Sorry about her, Madame Prez. Likes to tease people. Rivals quickly told the Autobot leader before asking something else. So, where exactly are Lelouch and the others anyway? Lelouch and the Black Knights, along with the WZERO unit, are currently in the Warsaw military base getting much-needed rest from their previous mission. Optimus replied. The Autobots with them have returned to the WZERO base with their nightmares. So, their mission was a success. That is good to hear. Misty said with a smile. Did they have another mission to go to? Shirley asked. As in, right away. No. Is there something you would like to ask them? Optimus responded. Well, Nunnally began. If Big Brother and the others aren't doing anything, could we possibly use a ground bridge and pay them a visit? It'd be a nice way for us to spend some time together, maybe even get to know his new friends a bit. Is that all right with you? Optimus' only response was with a genuine smile. Warsaw Sports Stadium. Sarah and Akito both sat in a small bunker alone as the former put her hand onto the latter's forehead, concentrating hard with her own powers, hard enough that the Geass emblem on her forehead has glowing as she attempted to purge the Geass command from Akito's mind. But, it would seem she was incapable of it as she felt herself being pushed back before she finally released him. The immortal girl almost fell back before she steadied herself and took the time to catch her breath. I'm assuming you were unsuccessful. Akito said, his seemingly stoic expression still on his face. I'm sorry. Sarah shook her head. Normally I can purge the effect of a Geass from somebody, but you're a special case. I see. Akito looked away, though his expression remained cold. Sarah could clearly see the look of disappointment in his eyes. But it does appear that you at least have it under control to an extent. She commented. You're able to turn it on and off of your own accord. I wouldn't say I can control it. It's more like I can aim it, so to speak. Akito explained. Even before I knew what it was, it's kept me alive for so long. Ironic, isn't it? Something that was supposed to have killed me has helped me to survive. There's a reason for that. Sarah replied. Based on what I've learned so far, you were told to die when you were just a child. You were too young to understand exactly what that meant, but the effect itself has remained a part of your mind. Suzaku has something similar. Lelouch gave him the Geass command to live, and Suzaku has found a way to turn it into a weapon on the battlefield. I see. Akito understood. So, Sarah tried to phrase her question very carefully. That man, he was indeed your brother. Half-brother, but yes. Akito confirmed. Do you know why he wants to kill you? Sarah asked. No, and honestly, I don't care. Akito said as she saw the look of anger, even bloodlust in his eyes. A brief red ring flashed. He's lost his mind, which is why I am going to kill him. Meanwhile, the rest of the Black Knights, consisting of Colin, Suzaku, Rai, Orpheus, Gino, and Monica hung around in the bleachers around the stadium with Layla, Ryo, Yukiya, and Ayano. So, this place is a stadium, huh? Gino asked, trying to strike up conversation. Why'd they convert into a military base? Shouldn't they be playing soccer here or something? It's called football. Layla corrected him. And most people in the EU seem more concerned with the war effort, so something like sports seems rather trivial. She said with a slightly sad expression. She's got a point there. Yukiya pointed out. Whole world's going crazy with giant alien robots duking it out, not the time to host a World Cup. Probably because they're worried there won't be a world when it's all said and done. Ryo said. You guys always this pessimistic? Rai questioned. When you live in the same kind of hell we have, your optimism tends to die out. Yukiya said. Orpheus gave a slight snark. Oh please, you know nothing of hell. Oh, you got something to say pal. Ayano stood up with a slight flare in her temper. You think your life is miserable. Alright, that's enough. Suzaku stood up firmly. Look, we don't need to be at each other's throats right now. We're supposed to be getting some rest. Kinda hard to do in a place like this. Colin pointed out. Old stadium is one thing, but the people here. Hey, check it out, it's the Black Knights. The group turned to see a group of European soldiers walk up the stairs to mockingly greet them. The saviors of the world. What are you doing in a dump like this when you could be hanging out with your alien buddies? They probably think they're better than us just cause they got a grand purpose. Well, if their grand purpose helps them take the bullets instead of us, then let them. The soldiers laughed while most of the young pilots all glared, particularly Colin, Rai, and Ayano. The later looked like she was ready to march up and beat the crap out of them herself, but Monica quickly grabbed her arm. Don't. They're not worth it, the former knight of the round commented. Well, what crawled up their tailpipe and died? Gino questioned. We're trying to help them. For some people, they believe the Black Knights and the Autobots are the reason the world is in such a chaotic state right now. Layla explained. Seriously? Colin questioned. We're the ones who are fighting the cons just so they don't have to. The actions of the Autobots and Black Knights have disrupted Britannia. Monica said. Which, to some people, gave the Decepticons the chance they needed to overthrow the Empire and plunge the world into chaos. Even though the Decepticons could have done that any time they wanted to. Orpheus pointed out. But these people just seem more concerned about keeping each other safe right now. Yeah, that's just human nature for you. Ryo said in a low grumble. Selfish and petty to the end. I'd say that applies to maybe 50 to 60% of humanity. Sarah commented as she, Akito, and Lelouch walked up to join them. It may not seem like it, but there are more good people out there than you think. Well look who decided to join us. Yukiya said. His Majesty Zero, the axe-crazed ghost of Hannibal, and the immortal queen with fancy cosmic magic. So, what's our next move, Lelouch? Suzaku asked. Our next move is to get out of this place. Lelouch replied, much to his friend's surprise. The Autobots are at Castle Weisswolf, working to fix up the nightmares and other projects. There's nothing else to do here, so we might as well explore the city outside since none of you seem eager to stay here. Best idea I've heard all day. Ayano was already on board as the group stood up and prepared to leave. However, just as the group made it to the top of the stairs, they were surprised to see a ground bridge portal open up right in front of them, and even more surprised to see familiar faces stepping outside. Hey guys, did you miss us? Millie waved as she stepped out first, followed by Shirley, Nunnally, Rivals, Nina, and Misty. They even brought Anna and Euphemia with them, the former princess wearing a hat and sunglasses. Alice was also present as she hung a bit further behind Nunnally. Wah, what are all of you doing here? Lelouch questioned as the rest of his fellow Black Knights were beyond surprised for this unexpected arrival. The WZERO unit looked in expressions of surprise and confusion. We came here to surprise you, big brother. Nunnally instantly ran up to him and wrapped her arms around his torso. Though still not over his surprise, he smiled as he returned the embrace. Lelouch noticed Alice's presence as well. He tried to give a friendly smile, but she simply looked away with a shy expression. Did you guys seriously just groundbridge here from Horai Island to pay us a visit? Colin questioned. Well, ground bridges do make worldwide trips a lot more convenient for us. Shirley pointed out. Yeah, no more messy airlines or being stuck between a couple of sick people on a regular plane. Rivals added. And technically we made a quick stop on our way here to pick up 2 more people. Nina gestured to Yuffie and Anna behind them. Yuffie, Suzaku exclaimed as the former princess gave him a hug. I thought you were back at the castle with the Autobots. Nunnally and everyone else dropped by and asked to join us. Alita said it was alright. Yuffie responded. Anna was also with me and she wanted to see if Layla was doing alright. Layla herself looked in surprise at her childhood friend, who also gave her an embrace. Layla, I'm glad you're okay. You have no idea how worried I was about you during that mission. I'm alright Anna, don't worry. Layla assured. It's so good to see you guys again. Gino was the first to greet his friends, followed by Rai, Monica, and even Orpheus, who exchanged a smile with Misty. Rai looked towards Shirley with a smile, which she returned with a slight blush on her face. Nunnally even shared a hug with Sarah, who returned it as well. I'm a little surprised Sayoko isn't here. Sarah told the younger girl. Isn't she supposed to be your bodyguard, Nunnally? She's with Kagaya in the Chinese Federation. Nunnally replied. Considering I'm surrounded by almost every Autobot and Black Knight on Horai Island, and Kagaya is surrounded by so many potential enemies, she might need a little more help than just Shink. Makes sense. Sarah nodded. Ahem. They all heard Ryo clear his throat loudly as they turned to the rest of the WZERO. So, introductions, please. Right, of course. Lelouch stepped aside to introduce the respective groups. These are some of our fellow Black Knights and close personal friends of ours. Millie Ashford, Shirley Finette, Rivals Cardamon, Nina Einstein, Misty Ix, and Alice. As well as my younger sister, Nunnally. Everyone, these are soldiers of the WZERO, Akito Hyuga, Ryo Sayama, Ayano Kasaka, and Yukiya Naruse. Hi, it's nice to meet all of you. Shirley greeted friendly as she extended a hand to Akito first, who returned with a handshake of his own, but still carried his stoic expression. So, you're Lelouch's younger sister. Layla leaned down slightly to greet Nunnally. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Nunnally. Your brother speaks very highly of you. And you must be Layla, it's nice to meet you too. Nunnally greeted with a smile. You're even more beautiful in person. Layla was slightly caught off guard by the praise but soon smiled with a slight blush. Oh, thank you very much. Alright, now that everyone knows everyone, let's explore the city. Gino urged. Come on. We're all on leave of absence aka military vacation, so let's make the most of it. Castle Weisswolf. Claus sat casually on a fishing boat which floated atop a lake that was just outside the castle's perimeter. He gave a slight sneeze before shivering. Sheesh, it's cold. Lucky for me, I've got a little booze to warm up my bones. However, before he could take a sip from his flask, he heard the sound of a loud engine from the west side of the pond and saw a certain monster truck shoot out of the woods before it transformed into Grindcore, who leapt into the air and gave a mighty call. Cannonball. The large green Autobot called out as he performed a cannonball into the pond, causing a massive wave to form as Claus looked at it with a blank expression before the wave carried him and his boat to shore before toppling over. Claus got up to see Grindcore's head poking out of the pond. Oh, sorry man. Didn't see you there. The Autobot apologized. Having fun, I see. Claus commented with a sardonic grin. Oh yeah, trying to see who can make the biggest splash. Grindcore gave a toothy grin. Oh, and you might wanna move out of the way. Before he could ask what that meant, Claus heard a similar engine sound from the forest behind him. He just barely rolled out of the way as Bulkhead's own vehicle mode shot out from the woods before he transformed and jumped into the air as well. Cannonball. Bulkhead shouted as he performed his own cannonball. This wave ended up being much larger, which happened to roar over and splash all over Claus. Woo, that was a big one. Grindcore said as Bulkhead stood up from the water. Hey, let's try doing that with a smelting pit. Splash it over the cons. Sure, if you wanna get melted yourself. Bulkhead said in a joking fashion. Despite being soaked all over, Claus couldn't help but chuckle. Guess I'm still babysitting, he said as he ended up chugging down his whole flask. Meanwhile, in a separate area of the forest surrounding Castle Weisswolf, Prowl sat in a small clearing in a meditative stance, observing everything around him. Every tiny little detail from the wind blowing across the trees, to the changing colors of the leaves, to even the tiniest of animals that flew and scurried around him. The normally sarcastic and serious Autobot couldn't help but enjoy the serenity of Earth's nature. It was quiet and peaceful, a welcome change to the chaos and destruction of war. However, his smile faded as he heard a twig snap from behind. He already sensed their presence and had hoped they were only observing, but given how young these two Autobots were, he wasn't at all surprised as Smokescreen and Sideswipe leapt out from behind to get the jump on him. Prowl simply leapt into the air and allowed the two young Autobots to collide into each other before landing on top with his feet to pin them to the ground. "Aw man, thought we had him that time," Sideswipe complained. "Goes to show why he's in the elite guard," Smokescreen commented with a smile. "Patience and observation," Prowl said as he walked off Smokescreen and Sideswipe, allowing them to stand up. "You would learn a thing or two from even one of these virtues." "Hey, I'm observant," Sideswipe argued. "I know which con needs to be sliced up the most and I take him down." He drew his sword for emphasis. "You can identify the most dangerous adversary," Prowl noted. "A useful tactic, but you shouldn't rush without strategy. That is suicide." "Well, what if you're the only one standing between the bad guy and total defeat? And it's all on you?" Smokescreen asked. "Gotta make a stand, right? If you have a plan for victory, then yes, make your stand." Prowl understood Smokescreen was asking genuine questions to learn, which he would respond with answers he thought was best. But if you die, then you die. And depending on the circumstance, an instant death could mean the end of your entire cause. So, basically, have a plan, right? Sideswipe summed up. "It seems you are capable of learning," Prowl said with a smirk. At the same time, Strongarm sat on the rooftop of the castle, overlooking the footage of the previous battle and taking notes on what she saw when she was approached from behind by RC and Bumblebee. "What are you doing?" RC asked, causing Strongarm to stand up in military fashion. "RC, ma'am, I am reviewing our previous battle," the Autobot rookie replied. "There is much we need to understand about our enemy." "That's good and all, but you've been doing it since we got back," RC told her. "Take your mind off it for a minute and relax a bit." "Ma'am, all due respect, any time we have to ourselves, I feel we should use to better prepare for the next battle." Strongarm explained her reasoning. "This way we will be able to better handle any unexpected circumstances that may arise in the next confrontation." "Listen Strongarm, it's good that you want to better yourself, but you also have to take some time to rest," Bumblebee told her. "Your mind needs as much rest as your body, otherwise you might overexert yourself." "Do you think this is the best course of action?" Strongarm asked. "Yeah, kinda," RC said. "Then I will review this footage later." Strongarm put the footage away. Though Bumblebee and RC were pleased to see she was going to rest, it seemed more like she was doing it because she was told to. She was a good bot, but still a rookie, with so much to learn. They only hoped she would grow out of it soon. War doesn't take too kindly to rookies. At the same time, on the bridge of the Ironwall, Ultra Magnus and Alita were speaking with Sophie and Jetfire over the communications. "And you simply cannot sever the neural link?" Magnus asked. "It's not like you're cutting a string with scissors," Sophie said. "This link maximizes performance by providing tight coordination with the pilots. The system is integrated with these nightmares, we can't just delete it like an old video game or anything. Besides, we might be able to use it to our advantage." Jetfire added. "What happened to Akito and the others was unexpected, but it might actually be of use to us. See what you can find and report back to us," Magnus ordered before ending transmission. "I don't like this." "Neither do I," Alita admitted. "Whatever that Shin character did to Akito, I can't even imagine. I know Geass is dangerous, but actually seeing its effects in action like that, it's rather terrifying. A power like that shouldn't even exist," Ultra Magnus said. "Its corruptive influence is one thing, but what Megatron has done with it? There's nothing we can do now, other than find a way to turn it to our advantage." Alita told him. "We've seen with Optimus and even Lelouch that Geass itself isn't evil. Dangerous and risky, yes, but it can help. There is also the possibility of it being connected to Unicron. Ultra Magnus commented. Which only makes me all the more anxious. But we don't have much to go on. You're right to be concerned, Magnus. However, until we have more information to work with, all we can do is just keep an eye out and see how things develop. Alita said. I know it's not your style, and you want to get things done as quickly and effectively as possible, but you might have to make an exception with this case. Ultra Magnus carried a serious expression, silently saying that he understood that, but he didn't necessarily have to like it. Warsaw. Meanwhile, the large group of young soldiers and Black Knights had spent quite a bit of time wandering around the city of Warsaw, just exploring the bazaar for the most part, eyeing some of the shops and stands and what they had to offer, while also spending some time getting to know each other quite a bit. Shirley was quick to get on everyone's good side, already hitting it off with Layla, Ayano, Anna, and even Ryo and Yukiya. Millie quickly re-established her old status as the Ashford She-Devil, with her teasing of the WZERO soldiers, their skin-tight uniforms easily sticking out. Rivals was an all-around friendly individual, whom Ryo took a slight liking to. Nina wasn't as active as everyone else, but she was able to establish some common ground with Anna and even Yukiya with their tech savviness. Nunnally soon found herself talking non-stop with Layla, the two hitting it off almost instantly, much to the pleasantness of Lelouch, Suzaku, Rai, Euphemia, and even Colin. Misty smiled with everyone, but she seemed rather reserved, not necessarily antisocial, just a bit distant compared to everybody. The only one she seemed to around was Orpheus and Monica by extension. If one could be considered antisocial, it would be Alice. She didn't talk to anybody, answering only the questions that were asked of her, but she simply chose to fade into the background, sticking only around Nunnally. Even though the group didn't really buy anything, they seemed to enjoy their time together as they took the time to catch their breath and rest up by the stairs to an old building. I've never really been to the EU before, but this is pretty amazing. Shirley stated with a grin. Sure, this place looks nice, but trying going to the ghettos. A pretty girl like you won't last long there. Yukiya said with some cynical humor. But why the heck are there ghettos in the EU? Isn't that a Britannian policy? Rivals asked. And Britannia's kinda gone now. Apparently, when Japan was invaded, the EU was worried Britannia would attack them for sheltering any Japanese refugees or immigrants. Colin summed up. Doesn't make it right though. I'm so sorry. Shirley said toward Yukiya, Ayano, and Ryo. Hey, it's not your fault most politicians are a bunch of cowards. Ayano commented. Well, after we take down the cons, we're gonna make some serious changes. Rai stated. I agree, things have to change, or they'll stay the same forever. Euphemia agreed. Hey, what's with the disguise anyway, Euphi? Gino asked, taking note of her hat and sunglasses. Are you serious right now, Gino? Monica elbowed him irritably. What? He questioned. First of all, she's a former Britannian princess, and we're in a territory that was enemies with Britannia. Lelouch explained as simply as he could. Second, her face has caused quite a bit of controversy with what happened at the special zone in Japan. He made sure to phrase that last part very carefully, knowing his half-sister still felt terrible about that whole ordeal. It still hurt her though. She understood her brother wasn't trying to offend her or anything, and what happened at the SAS wasn't entirely her fault. It didn't make it any less painful to being forced to see it. Nunnally and Suzaku tried to comfort her as best they could, the former putting her hand on one of Yuffie's, while Suzaku reached his arm around her shoulders. Right, sorry. Gino said with a wince. It's all right, Yuffie muttered, accepting the comfort from her sister and boyfriend. Even Ryo and Ayano looked a bit in sympathy with everyone else. As the group continued to talk, Alice hung a bit further away, only to find she was actually standing particularly close to Akito. The two exchanged eye contact but chose not to say anything. It was almost as if they were engaged in visual combat with one another, instinctively analyzing each other on first glance. Sarah leaned against the wall near them, having a good idea what was going on between them until something got all their attention. Poor children, all three of them looked towards an elderly woman, clad in black with black glasses over her eyes, who dropped her walking stick as she walked closer toward them. Cursed children, I can sense it. She reached out and grabbed Akito's wrist along with Alice's. You've been touched by the devil. That got Chera's attention. What the hell are you? Alice did not like this at all. Let go. Akito muttered as he tried to shake her off, but she held firm onto both of them, but seemed to focus her gaze on Sarah in particular. You have seen the devil, his mark is on you. As she appeared to be ranting, Sarah couldn't help but recall looking into the evil gaze of Megatron's dark Geass, or even what she saw in the vision of Akito and Shin's childhood with the skull and the dark face behind it. However, it seemed Akito and Alice had enough of the elderly woman as they shook her off. No! Akito exclaimed. Get off of me! Alice shouted as the elderly woman was thrown back, which got the attention of all their friends. What's going on? Suzaku questioned, only for everyone to see a group of elderly gypsies run toward the elderly woman, who appeared to be in agony. Are you alright? Her leg is so banged up. She can't walk. What happened? Nunnally exclaimed. Can we help? Layla offered. She's in such poor health. Even a scratch could kill her. One of the gypsies stated as their fellow gypsy continued to wail. We don't have enough money to take our poor sick friend to a doctor. If only we could afford medicine for our dying friend here. We could call the hospital for you. Anna offered. Oh, they don't need it, cause their friend isn't sick at all. Millie said as she leaned in close to the elderly gypsies. Sorry ladies, but you can't fool me with your little act. If you want to swindle money with us, hate to say it, but we're all flat broke. What? The gypsy in black from before stood up, completely dropping her act with the others. What is the meaning of this? Turns out they're broke. One laughed. All that for nothing. But one did see through our act. Not bad, most people would give us their life savings after most of our stunts. Another said with a grin. Hey, Lelouch, do we really have any money at all? Rivals whispered to his friend. Most of us had Britannian currency and well, with Britannia gone. You really want to learn our complex budget plan for the whole Black Knight Autobot Alliance? Lelouch asked rhetorically. On second thought, forget I asked. Rivals quickly said, not wanting to know just what kind of crazy financial plan he cooked up. The student council was already crazy enough, and that was just for Ashford. Well, we don't really have the need to carry any money. Misty explained logically. We can call for a ride anytime we wanted. So if you really were hurt, we could have easily taken you to the nearest medical facility. Oh well, isn't that sweet of you? One gypsy said. So why don't we repay your kindness? Another said with a grin. Less than an hour later, the group of 7 gypsies had led the larger group of 22 teenagers, if you count the immortal Sarah as a teenager, to their camp, which was at the edge of a forest and a river, far on the outskirts of Warsaw. They had several large wagons with them as well as the gypsies had set up the table and began pouring some wine and laughed. Ah, nothing like a glass of wine after a hard day's work. Sure is nice to have so many young and able-bodied servants here to cater to our every whim. They got so many pretty girls and really cute boys. I really like that one with black hair and purple eyes. But those outfits of theirs are so indecent. My goodness. I think I might have a heart attack. You know you'd like it. The gypsies all shared a laugh, while the young soldiers looked more than a little confused. What just happened? Rai asked. How did we get dragged all the way over here? Orpheus also wondered as everyone silently wondered the same thing. I thought old ladies were sweet. Ryo commented. All the ones I've met have been nice. Shirley said. Not in my experience. Iyano said. Ironically, I'm actually older than all of them combined. Sarah commented. Why the hell did we volunteer for this? Colin muttered. Why don't we just call for a ground bridge and get out of here? Because these elderly women said they would need some help, so we should help them. Suzaku said. No offense Suzaku, but I don't necessarily think they need it. Even Yuffie seemed to agree with everyone else. They all seem to be rather healthy for their age. Misty observed. Did we just get scammed? Gino questioned. Yes Gino, we've been scammed. Monica confirmed with a hint of annoyance in her voice. Well, I think we should stay here. Nunnally offered, much to everyone's surprise. It's nice here and we could all use a little vacation. Hey yeah, this could be a great bonding experience for all of us. Millie was already on board. It'll be so nice to not worry about the fate of the world for a change. Well, let's give it a chance. Shirley seemed alright with it. Worse comes to worse, we can leave via ground bridge. Lelouch said. So, fine, we can stay for a little bit. You could just use that fancy Geass of yours to make these old ladies your slaves, ya know. Yukiya said cynically. Not happening. Lelouch shot down the thought immediately. Are you kids finishing gossiping over there? One of the gypsies called out to them. Hurry up and get your working clothes on. 10 minutes later, every single one of them had been forced to dress into various colorful outfits suited for gypsies. They all wore a multitude of different colors, shirts, pants, dresses, anything that the elderly gypsies forced upon them. While some of them allowed themselves to be undressed of their own accord, others were forcibly stripped down, with the elderly women having the most fun with Colin and Ayano. Already, most of the young men and women were dressed up in outfits they never expected. Akito wore a green shirt with white pants. Suzaku had a gray and white open top with black pants. Ryo had a dark purple open vest with black pants. Colin wore a vibrant red dress. Ray's was a simple blue top with navy blue pants. Ayano wore a dark purple top with a light purple dress underneath. Gino had something akin to his old Knight of the Round uniform with a white open top and white pants with a golden sash tied around his waist. Yukiya appeared to be stuck with women's clothes with a light purple top and a dark red knee-high dress. Orpheus wore a white top with black pants. Layla wore an orange Gaispe dress with a green scarf tied at the waist. Anna had something similar that had a light yellow top and a sky blue dress. Monica wore a rather short yellow dress that showed off her legs with a white top. Euphemia's clothing was almost exactly like her old princess uniform, only more vibrant in pink, white, and red. Millie's outfit was primarily yellow and sky blue. Shirley wore a dark green dress. Rivals's outfit was a black sleeveless top with blue pants. Nina wore something simple such as a red top with a black dress. Alice was stuck with a pink top and dress herself, while Misty wore something that was much more bland, a white top with a black dress. Now, they had to simply wait for Nunnally, Lelouch, and Sarah to step outside. The immortal and former princess stepped out in their all-colorful dresses. Sarah had a dark green top with a blue and yellow dress at the bottom, while Nunnally wore something that was white and pink at the top with a darker pink dress on the bottom. Well, it's better than a straitjacket, Sarah said. Well, aren't you two beautiful? One of the gypsies commented. Takes us back to when we were young and sexy. One of them also took notice of something beneath Nunnally's dress. Hey, what you got under there? Oh, it's something to help me walk. Nunnally replied, which caused the present Black Knights, particularly Suzaku and Euphemia, to look with sympathy as they recalled how she still needed to wear her cybernetic leg braces to walk while the nanotechnology inside repaired her nerves. Alice was among those looking in concern as well. Hold on, one of you is missing. Hey, come on out, Lelouch. We're waiting. Colin called to him, but so far, no response. Is he okay in there? Rivals asked. I'll get him. Suzaku walked into the wagon. Come on, Lelouch, but he stopped upon seeing what he was wearing. Why are you? I think I'll just wear normal clothes. I'm not wearing this outside. They all heard the young revolutionary's voice from outside. It doesn't look that bad. Suzaku tried to reason with him. I'm not wearing this. Oh, come on, don't be such a spoil-sport Lulu. Millie quickly ran in and helped to drag him out. Come on, Suzaku. Help me out here. Despite resisting with all his might, Millie and Suzaku had dragged out Lelouch into the open to reveal he was wearing a primarily black and dark purple dress. Almost instantly, everybody laughed. The old women were among the first, followed by Ryo, Ayano, Yukiya, Rivals, Gino, Monica, Rai. Even Orpheus found himself smirking with Euphemia giggling alongside Shirley and Nina bit. Sarah smirked towards the giggling girl at her side. Nunnally, I never knew you had a long-lost sister. She joked, resulting in Nunnally laughing even harder as Lelouch's face turned red. I hate this. Hey, you said we could stay here. Reap what you sow, Lelouch. Colin said in between laughs. Oh, don't mind them, Lelouch. I honestly think you look beautiful. Layla tried to stifle a laugh but almost completely failed. Yes, it suits you really well, big brother. Nunnally continued to laugh. Is he what people call a transvestite? Misty asked Alice, and Akito, the only two who didn't appear to be laughing, but Alice did have a smirk on her face. No, I'm pretty sure it's because that's the only outfit available. Alice said. There are 22 of us, and only 7 of them. So, it would make sense they have limited clothing. Akito said logically. Alright, that's enough fooling around. Time to get to work, people. Millie announced, already getting into her Madam President mode. There's almost 30 people here total, and that's a lot of mouths to feed. So, Ryo, Suzaku, Rai, Orpheus, Gino, and Alice will handle the firewood, Layla, Shirley, Ayano, Monica, and Misty will help set up the tables. Colin, Yukiya, Nina, Anna, and myself will prepare the food. Akito, Lelouch, Yuffie, Nunnally, Sarah, and Rivals will get the water. With that, each group went to perform their respective tasks as Ayano, and Misty wiped the tables clean with Layla, Monica, and Shirley laying down one of the large tablecloths. These outfits feel kinda musty. Ayano commented. I still think there's dust in mine. Shirley tried to brush some off her side. That's because we haven't taken them out in 50 years. One gypsy revealed, much to their surprise. I would recommend we wash them then. Misty pointed out. Meanwhile, Ryo, Suzaku, Orpheus, Gino, and even Alice were handling all the firewood as they chopped down with their respective axes. Damn it, crazy old bats. Ryo muttered. Come on, they were nice to offer us their own place for us to stay. The least we could do is offer our help. Suzaku said. And I'm actually having fun. Gino smiled as he cut down a piece of wood himself. Nice to have a break and get away from everything. I don't mind hard work either. Orpheus added. Actually, helps to keep us in shape. He was suddenly grabbed in the rear by a gypsy that appeared out of nowhere, who also reached out her hand to do the same to Suzaku. A second one also appeared to reach out to the rears of Gino and Ryo, much to everyone's shock. Wow, you could bounce a coin off that. This one's got a nice ass right here. Hey, boundaries, please, Suzaku exclaimed as the 4 young men backed away, while Alice's face turned red for a reason she couldn't quite explain. Aren't you a little young to be doing something like this? A third gypsy asked Alice. And chopping firewood is a man's job. Alice sighed. Trust me, I've handled worse. And I'm a lot stronger than I look. She grabbed a small log with her bare hands and ripped it apart with raw strength alone. Much to the shock of all the young men and elderly women present, even Ryo's jaw dropped in pure shock. At the same time, Millie's group consisting of Colin, Yukiya, Nina, and Anna were helping to prepare the food as Yukiya skinned the potatoes like an expert while Colin did the same for the apples. Millie worked to cut the vegetables while Nina and Anna rolled the dough needed to make the pasta. Wow, you're pretty good with a knife, Yukiya. Anna complimented with a smile. Well, when I was a kid, it was either learn how to cook or go hungry. He replied. You'd be surprised what you'd have to cook if you're staying in the ghettos. Colin commented. Rats actually taste pretty good if you roast them right. Didn't you live with your stepmother though, Colin? Nina asked out of curiosity. Before joining the Black Knights, my friends and I would have to hunker down in the ghettos to avoid the authorities back in Japan. Colin explained. We'd hold out for a few days, so we had to take what we could get when it comes to food. Come on people, less talk, more cooking. Millie ordered. Geez, is she always like this? Yukiya asked Nina, who only smiled apologetically. When she's not working us to the bone, she's either fishing around for gossip or saying something really perverted. Huh, she really is a she-devil. Yukiya commented. I wear the title with pride. Millie smirked dangerously. Finally, the group consisting of Lelouch, Akito, Nunnally, Euphemia, Sarah, and Rivals were down by the river. While the girls worked to gather some water, the boys were sitting down with fishing rods, hoping to catch whatever was biting. Man, this is boring. Rivals yawned. You've only been here for 2 minutes. Akito commented. Fishing takes time, Rivals. Sarah told him as she filled a bucket of water. Some people have to wait hours before they catch a bite. Hours. Aw man. Rivals sulked even lower. I'm just glad we all get to spend this kind of time together. Nunnally smiled. I can't even remember the last time we all did something like this. I agree. This work is hard, but I'm enjoying myself. Euphemia smiled as well. Despite some of the humiliation he previously faced, as well as the hard work they had planned for, Lelouch couldn't help himself but give a relaxed smile. This was nice, just being out here on a nice sunny day, not worrying about politics or the next battle to fight. Honestly, if the war against the Decepticons were to come to an end soon, and the world placed in much safer hands, this is the kind of life Lelouch would look forward to. His thoughts were brought to a halt as a gypsy appeared next to him to grab him by the cheeks and proceed pinching them. Oh my, such a pretty face. If I were only 50 years younger, we'd make such beautiful babies. That caused Lelouch to stumble backwards and fall into the river, which caused everyone around him to laugh. Even Sarah got a good laugh out of it. The only one who didn't laugh was Akito, but that didn't stop him from smiling. Euro Britannia, Hyuga residence. While Shin Hyuga Shang was with his adoptive mother and sister inside, the Decepticon known as Steeljaw remained in his vehicle mode outside the manor as he accessed a private communication frequency. Steeljaw to Lord Megatron, do you read? Steeljaw, what is your status report? The leader of the Decepticons made contact. We've established a firm presence in Euro Britannia, and it seems you were right about the Autobots and Black Knights reaching out to the EU. Steeljaw gave his report. They are personally being led by Zero. Are you certain? Megatron asked right away. I've seen him myself, Lord Megatron. Steeljaw confirmed. What of Optimus Prime? Megatron questioned. No sign of him, my lord. Though Ultra Magnus was present, which leaves me to believe Optimus isn't in the EU. Steeljaw replied. More than likely, he is reaching out to the Chinese Federation. The leader of the Decepticons assumed. Also, the only remaining Britannian royal, Maribel Mel Britannia, and her own personal attack force is also allied with Euro Britannia. Steeljaw revealed. Though they don't seem particularly happy with our presence, I can still see a use for them, as pawns that is. Excellent work Steeljaw. Megatron congratulated. You're just the type of Decepticon I had been hoping to recruit. You humble me, Master. Oh, but one other thing. What exactly is a Geass? Steeljaw asked. For a moment, Megatron didn't respond right away, which only confirmed Steeljaw's suspicions that Megatron had been keeping secrets from some of his fellow Decepticons. Master. Where did you hear of that? Because it would seem that one of our newest allies possess it. His name is Shin Hyuga Shang, and I can see quite the future for him. Steeljaw said. You are certain this human possesses the ability called Geass? Megatron questioned. 100%, Master. Is there something I should know? Steeljaw asked humbly. I do not wish to pry or anything, but I want to be as helpful to our cause as I can, and there is only so much I can do with limited information. That is something you must earn Steeljaw. Be careful not to overstep your bonds. Megatron warned. Of course, merely curious. Steeljaw said. Continue your work in Euro Britannia. If you perform well, you may get your wish, but only if you are able to deliver adequate results. Megatron signed out. Steeljaw couldn't help but chuckle. This was all going well. All he had to do was keep working with Euro Britannia. He already had a plan to begin chipping away at the EU and forcing the Autobots and Black Knights into a corner before seizing on his prey, and he was certain Shin would gladly contribute to their cause. He could see it in his eyes, that man was a true Decepticon in human skin if he ever saw one. Lelouch stood alone. He stood completely isolated, clad in his Zero armor, bracing his arms against his face to keep away the roaring blizzard that he found himself trekking through. However, this was not a blizzard of snow, but rather one of smoke and ash. Keep going, he said to himself as he tried push forward. You have to get to them. Why? A new and familiar voice echoed across the smoky blizzard. There is nobody left. The raging cloud of ash began to clear, allowing Lelouch to see something that caused him to look in genuine horror. He saw the empty and lifeless husks of Autobots and nightmares alike, countless human skeletons laid all across the ground around him, several wearing the tattered uniforms of Black Knights and even civilians. No, I was too late. He muttered to himself before the ground below him began to shake. You were always too late. Always too weak. The voice said to him as the ashen skeletons around him began to part as he himself felt elevated on the ground, which was revealed to be a large metallic hand. Soon, Lelouch found himself literally in the palm of a titan-sized Megatron. The Decepticon warmonger gazing down on him, his dark Geass flaring through his purple eyes as he sneered evilly at Lelouch, laughing maniacally as he crushed him in his grip. Lelouch awoke with a slight gasp, Despite awakening from the nightmare, he was self-aware enough not to scream and yell, or else he may awaken everyone else. He calmed himself down and looked around and reminded himself that he had been asleep in one of the gypsies' wagons, alongside all of the guys who were separated from the girls as they slept in their own wagon. Though Lelouch did notice a couple of the elderly gypsies were clinging to Ryo as well as Gino, the latter sleeping peacefully while the former appeared to be shuddering as he slept. Lelouch couldn't help but chuckle at that, though he did notice Suzaku was not present in the wagon. He probably went out for some water or to relieve himself. Deciding to get some air, Lelouch quietly stepped out of his bunk and stepped carefully to avoid waking anybody up before stepping outside. Once he sat down on the ground, he began to take in the environment around him, the starry sky that laid above him, the gentle sounds of the river in front of him, the faint breeze in the trees behind him, even the city in front of him seemed to shine in the distance like stars as well. This carried a familiar feeling to when he, Optimus, and Yuffie were stranded in Kaname Island. Though that wasn't an adventure he'd be eager to repeat, it wasn't all bad. Not much of a sleeper, I take it. He heard Akito's voice as he stepped outside as well. Guess that makes two of us. Lelouch commented as Akito sat down next to him. For a moment, the two sat in silence, not sure of what to say to each other if there was really anything to say at all. You know, we're actually quite a bit alike. Lelouch said. You really think so? Akito asked, a slight feeling of skepticism in his voice. You've been dead inside for a long time. Lelouch began. Even in battle, you've just been going through the motions of life, as though you were a zombie. In your mind, it really didn't matter if you lived or died, feeling like everything you've been doing will all just be for nothing. That sounds about right, Akito admitted. And the whole reason we were both like that, is the exact same. We were both betrayed by someone from our family. Lelouch said. My father, and even a few my own siblings, betrayed me. Just as your brother betrayed you. Akito said nothing but looked toward Lelouch as he continued. I don't know what exactly happened between you two, but I can tell there was something there. Maybe you two were close once upon a time, until he betrayed you. Something he did caused your whole world to collapse, and now here you are, just going through the motions without appearing to give a second thought to anyone else. But underneath that cold exterior, there is at least one person in this world that you feel you have to protect. For me, it was just my sister in the past, for you, it's Layla. She's my commanding officer, and I her soldier. It's my duty to look after and protect her. Akito said. Maybe, or maybe there's something else. Lelouch told him. What exactly are you implying? Akito began. Are you trying to get me to open up? Trying to become my friend and show I'm not alone in the world? I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life, Akito. Lelouch said. If you want to open yourself up to others, or just shut yourself out from them, that's your choice. It's your life, your choice. But, I will say this. Once I opened myself up to others, I didn't feel so alone anymore. You'd be surprised how much that can change your whole perspective. Lelouch could tell right away that Akito had gone through a very similar experience to him. He didn't know the details, but he did recognize that dead expression when they first met. They even carried the same initial cynical attitude. The young revolutionary tried to speak in a way that he thought Optimus would speak, or even Nunnally. They both could see the good in people even when others couldn't, and even he was slowly beginning to see things through their perspective as well. Maybe Akito could be as well. Akito, meanwhile, didn't say anything and just chose to continue looking out into the stars. He probably wouldn't say anything to Lelouch again for the rest of the night, but he had the feeling that Lelouch found that acceptable. Though he will admit that Lelouch was right, he had to protect Layla, she was his commanding officer first and foremost. However, at the same time, he recalled all the times she tried to speak to him in a less than professional manner, and more friendly. At first, he dismissed that as just something from her age, but the more he thought about it, was she just really trying to be a friend to him? And it seemed like many of Lelouch's other friends in the Black Knights, even a few of the Autobots, were trying to do the same, and he'd be lying to say that it didn't feel nice. He tried to push away those thoughts, because whenever something like that came to the surface, so did a memory he desperately wanted to forget. At the same time, Layla had also woken up a little bit ago, having been unable to sleep a bit herself. She had managed to listen to what Lelouch and Akito were talking about, Though it wasn't her intention to eavesdrop, she couldn't help but listen to what they were saying. She blushed a bit when she heard Akito talk about her, though she did know that he was speaking about her professionally. A part of her felt there was a bit more than that. You know, it's kinda rude to eavesdrop. She was slightly startled by Suzaku, who approached with a slight smile. Suzaku, what are you? I had to relieve myself. He explained. I'm guessing you're having a hard time sleeping, but you couldn't help but listen to those two, right? He said with a slight joking grin. Layla made no effort to hide her embarrassment as she sat down and leaned her back against the wagon. Yes, guess I'm not as mature as I thought. Nothing wrong with that, Suzaku said as he sat down next to her. In all honesty, I kinda find it refreshing. I know we're at war against a ruthless enemy and the fate of the world literally rests on our shoulders, but it's nice to act like a kid because, well, we are kids, or teenagers, but you get what I mean. Layla giggled. Yeah, I do. Thank you for understanding. Suzaku smiled but it quickly faded. I just wish I could have done something like this sooner. That got Layla's attention as he began to confess aloud. I wish I could have worked with my friends, but I was too stubborn, and that led me straight to Megatron, and I almost became the very thing I thought I was fighting against. Based on what I've heard, Megatron is a master manipulator. Layla replied. So, I would say that was mostly his fault. Not all of it, Suzaku continued. Megatron is pure evil, I acknowledge that. But, he wasn't the one who convinced me to join the Britannian military, that was me. And what happened to my father? Your father? Layla looked in surprise. But, didn't he take his own life to protest Japan's continued resistance against Britannia? No, he didn't. Suzaku shook his head. It wasn't suicide, it was murder. Murder at my hands. Layla couldn't contain her gasp. She had to double take, just to make sure she heard correctly. Did Suzaku just say, he killed his own father? He didn't protest the military actions, to the contrary he encouraged it. Suzaku began as a look of guilt formed in his eyes. He even called for do-or-die resistance when Japan was invaded. But, that would have led to millions of people dying, I couldn't accept that. I tried to reason, even beg him to stop but he wouldn't. I took a knife and tried to threaten him, but he called my bluff, or at least it was supposed to be a bluff. But, before I knew it, I drove that knife into his heart. I didn't think I just acted. He clenched his fists on top of his lap as Layla continued to listen. And the worst part, people who worked with my father actually tried to protect me. I expected to be punished, but I was protected. I killed my own father, and I was being protected. Is that why you joined the Britannian military? Layla asked. Yes, Suzaku confirmed. I thought it was a way I could atone. I tried to tell myself that if I could prove myself to them, I could rise up the ranks and invoke change from within. But, truth be told, it seemed the best way for me to be punished. I was an 11, the son of the former prime minister no less. They would send me on suicide missions, they wanted me to die, and I felt that was the best way I could atone. Die for a righteous cause, or at least what I thought was righteous. But I just an idiot wanting to be punished. His fists continued to clench, his shoulders shaking as the guilt he had been feeling continued to build up, that is until Layla put a gentle hand on his shoulder. The act alone was a surprise, but an even greater one was the fact that she was smiling toward him. You made mistakes, some that can never be undone, but the fact that you've acknowledged them, and you're here now, wanting to change, that shows how much of a good person you are. Layla said with a smile. And you are a good person, Suzaku Kururugi. Though his guilt would probably continue to wait at him for years to come, he was grateful for the support she had given, as well as that of his friends. Thank you. Is it true that your parents were Britannian but defected to Europea? Yes, it is true. Layla confirmed. My father, Assemblyman Breisgau. He was my hero growing up. Even as a child, I knew there was something wrong with the world, but I also felt that my father was the man who could change it. That is, until he was killed, along with my mother. I'm sorry, Suzaku said. But, now look at you, look at where you are. You're following in your father's footsteps, wanting to change the world. And you're not the only one. The Decepticons want nothing more than to drain the earth dry, leave it a lifeless husk like they did their own home world. And I'm not naive enough anymore to know there are plenty of people who do the same thing. But, There are just as many people out there who want to change things for the better, and the Autobots fight for that every day. Even though this is not their home, they're willing to put their lives on the line for it. Look, what I'm trying to say is, you shouldn't give up the fight. I'll hold on to my sins for the rest of my life if I have to, but I'm not going to quit or even die trying. I'm going to live and help the people I love save this world, and you can do that too, Layla. She tried to wipe the tears from her eyes as she smiled at him. Thank you, Suzaku. Castle Weisswolf. It was nighttime too in Sophie's personal room. She looked out the window expectantly until she saw the face of Jetfire peer inside. You said you wanted to talk to me, Miss Randall. Please just call me Sophie. She said before getting to the point. Let me show you something. Sophie pressed a few key commands on her laptop before a special compartment along the wall opened up, revealing some kind of stasis pod that had a man hooked up to life support inside. Needless to say, Jetfire was more than a little surprised. Who is that? My husband, Takaru Randall. Sophie replied, much to Jetfire's surprise. He's still alive, physically anyway. What happened? Jetfire asked. 5 years ago, we were experimenting with that neural link for the Alexanders. Sophie explained. Our dream was always to put BRS into practical use. It's our hypothesis that feelings and emotions could be shared by manipulating resonating brainwaves. If we're to use that with our nightmares, we could establish a neural link to all the pilots together and they would be able to act as one. Takaru volunteered for an experiment, but his mind couldn't handle it. And we almost saw that with Akito and the others on their previous mission. Jetfire said. But it wasn't just from the Alexanders, you know that, right? Yes. Something you explained called a Geass. Sophie replied. And for some reason, you haven't gone into all the details about it. Because we're not 100% certain where that power comes from. Jetfire explained. We have some theories, but they're not good. And by not good, I mean that the source itself could be incredibly dangerous and not something to mess around with. I've seen the destruction something like that is capable of. It led to the destruction of our home. Just because we can experiment with something, doesn't mean we should. Restraint, I know, and I completely agree. Sophie said. I'm not a mad scientist or anything like that, but I still believe in miracles. And, I'm talking to one right now. Jetfire looked toward her curiously as she directed her gaze toward him. Do you think, your advanced Cybertronian science could finally wake him up? Jetfire smiled. I'll need to know exactly what happened, and if you have any data on the incident that would certainly help. But yes, I think we can do something, maybe even something with that neural link you were talking about. Sophie smiled as she looked towards her comatose husband. Thank you. At the same time, Ultra Magnus was outside the castle, gazing up toward the stars before he found himself being joined by Alita 1. This feels familiar. The pink female Autobot commented. Takes you back, doesn't it? To when all of us, you, myself, Orion, Ratchet, Ironhide, even Megatron found ourselves gazing toward the stars, wondering for what the future might hold, and hoping it was a better one than what we had now. Ultra Magnus smiled. If I recall, you and Orion shared a few moments to yourselves for a time. Alita smiled back before it faded slightly. She truly did miss those nights, just as much as she missed Orion Pax, the Cybertronian she fell in love with. While she respected Optimus with every ounce of her spark and would follow him into hell and back if he wanted to, he wasn't quite the same Autobot she knew. Though they were still good friends and solid comrades, who fought for the same goal of freedom, it wasn't the same as before. But she was able to find peace with that. However, nothing could have prepared us for what future Cybertron had. Magnus said as his smile faded. Or rather, its lack of thereof. Maybe hope isn't lost. Alita said. Optimus carries the Matrix, and as long as he does, Primus still lives. The Allspark is also out there, somewhere across the stars. I know it's fleeting, but I still believe in hope. Hope not just for our planet's salvation, but for this one as well. Earth has a chance at survival. Ultra Magnus said. But we must steel our resolve. It will take far more than hope to stop Megatron. And we will stop him. Alita said with a serious expression gazing at the stars. Because as Optimus has faith in the humans who fight alongside us, so do I. The next day, the young soldiers awoke and were once again back at work with everyday chores, which included doing the laundry, something that Millie and one of the gypsies was helping to teach Layla. "Come on Layla, put your back into it," Millie ordered. "Right," Layla exclaimed as she continued to pound some of the water out of the clothes. "That girl is a ruthless coach," Ryo commented as he, Anna, Rivals, Suzaku, Colin, Nina, Ayano, and Yukiya continued to watch while they worked with more of the laundry themselves. "Yeah, when Millie's in charge, it's always about giving 110%. Rivals said. "Ya know, I kinda respect that sort of tenacity," Yukiya said. "I still think it's sad that Layla has to learn how to do laundry," Ayano said. "Give her a break, she's rich. She's always had a servant, or something do that kind of stuff for her," Colin commented. "Or they just have a laundry machine," Suzaku added. "Layla always insists on doing what she can to help," Anna explained, "even when it comes to chores, though she's not quite good at it. But don't tell her I said that. She's about as klutzy as Shirley is sometimes," Rivals said. "Well, I could use a little help myself," Euphemia said with an apologetic smile as she held a series of sheets that needed to be cleaned. "Oh, Euphemia, let me help with that." Nina ran over quickly. "You know how to do laundry by hand, Nina?" Euphemia asked with a hopeful smile, which caused Nina to blush with embarrassment. No. But, I can help still." Ayano sighed toward Colin. "Come on, we should help them out." Colin gripped one sheet by one end with Euphemia grabbing the other, while Nina and Ayano did the same for the second. "Okay, hold on tight Euphi," Colin told her. "Ready, set, go." She spun her end of the sheet to wring the water out while Euphi held on as best as she could. "You too Nina. Hold on as tight as you can," Ayano told her. "Right." She nodded firmly as Ayano began to spin and wring out their own sheet. "Hey, that looks fun. Why not let me join in?" Ryo offered. "You've got your own job, remember?" Colin reminded. Fine." Ryo sulked as he took a pair of buckets and walked toward the river to fetch some water. But as he bent down, he felt his rear getting groped by a set of wrinkly hands, startling him as he backed into the river. "Can't keep my hands off it," a gypsy joked. "Can't an old girl get a little bit of love?" "Not from me." Ryo backed away even further, only to end up sinking into the deeper water, much to everyone's surprise, and the horror of his friends. "Ryo!" Yukiya exclaimed. "He can't swim." Ayano also shouted. "Oh no!" Euphemia gasped. "Somebody help him!" Anna exclaimed just as Suzaku dove into the water with Colin right beside him. The two were quick to pull Ryo out of the water as everyone else ran to help him out. "You okay, man?" Rivals asked. "That water is deeper than it looks," Millie commented, looking toward the river. "I had no idea you couldn't swim," Suzaku said as Ryo was helped back to his feet, but Suzaku quickly felt something around his own rear, causing him to stumble backwards as another gypsy had groped him as well. "Well, aren't you a hero? How about a little reward for your selfless act?" she teased. No thanks. I'm good," Suzaku quickly said, resulting in everyone else, even Ryo, laughing at his expense. Meanwhile, Nunnally, Shirley, Alice, and Misty had brought in several logs toward the group consisting of Lelouch, Rai, Gino, Orpheus, Akito, and even Monica as they used their hatchets to cut down on the logs to make firewood. "Wow, look at you go Lulu," Shirley said in a joking tone. "A year ago, I wouldn't imagine you doing any kind of labor. We can thank Sayoko and Toto that they helped you to finally gain some muscle," Nunnally added. Ha, very funny," Lelouch said with a smirk. Gino brought down his hatchet to cut down some wood before wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Man, this is great. I never did work like this with the other knights. Because manual labor was beneath us," Monica commented in a slight joking tone herself. "That's reserved only for the lower class." Most of the group chuckled at the remark before Rai spoke up. "Ya know, even though you guys knights of the round, who are supposed to Britannia's elite and all that, you two and Nonette are some of the nicest people I know. Not everyone from Britannia is a racist bigot apparently," Akito said somewhat cynically. "Yeah well, the whole number system seemed like garbage if you ask me," Gino commented before a sad expression fell on his face. "Too bad my parents didn't feel the same way." Everyone looked toward him as he continued. When I was 14, we had a maid at our household, a teenage 11 girl who was around my age. Her name was Rin, and she was amazing. He smiled fondly. I didn't care if she was Japanese or not, didn't stop me from getting a major crush on her. That took them all by surprise. My parents found out though and kicked her back out on the street before my old man beat her with a stick. His fists clenched around the hatchet. 2 years later, I left home to join the military. It was better than being stuck in that stupid mansion for the rest of my life. Gino, I'm sorry. Shirley apologized as she, Nunnally, and Monica looked the most sympathetic, even Ryan Lelouch looked toward him with pity. I got no idea where she is now, or if she's even still alive. Gino commented as he looked towards the clouds. And I miss her almost every day. I know how that feels. Orpheus said, getting their attention again. I lost somebody I loved too, only she wasn't kicked out, or anything like that, she was murdered. Was she in the Geass order with you? Lelouch asked. She was. Misty confirmed. Her name was Yulia, and the three of us escaped the Geass order, fleeing to a village in Hungary. But Pluton tracked us down and laid waste to the village. Orpheus and I were the only ones to survive. Anger flashed through his eyes, almost instinctively activating his Geass, as he recalled the bloody massacre. Monica, being the one closest to him, put a comforting hand on his back to try and quell his rage, which seemed to work a bit. It seems everyone here has lost someone at some point in their life. Akito said. Family, friends, lovers, I suppose that gives us all something in common. It's sad, but at the same time, it's also beautiful. Nunnally said, surprising most of the group. I mean, what happened to everyone was tragic and, it should have been avoided, but, the fact that each of us are here, that we're standing back on our feet even though so many people and monsters have tried to break us down, we're all stronger because of that. But, above all, I think we're strongest when we're together. Lelouch couldn't help but smile at his sister's resolve. Though she was growing into somebody was also quite fierce and strong like those around her, there was also that same kind of optimistic and hopeful personality she had when she couldn't see or walk for 7 years, the same kind of personality that saw only the best in people. Meanwhile, another person who observed everything was Sarah, who had been gathering smaller pieces of wood for kindling by herself. She had seen everything that everyone had been up to, and smiled with both humor and hope at each of their interactions. You, Sarah, is it? She heard one of the gypsies as she walked toward her. Yes. Why aren't you down there with your pals? Sarah hesitated before answering. I'm just used to keeping my distance sometimes, she said before walking away. Later that night, everyone had once again gathered around for a large feast, enjoying each other's company, and helping themselves to whatever grub was in front of them. This is amazing. Shirley beamed. I know. Who knew we were such good cooks? Rai agreed as they shared smiles. I think you have my coaching to thank for all that. Millie commented. Who was it that kept things organized? You mean beating us with a whip, Miss She-Devil? Yukiya teased. Hey, easy ladies. Gino said as a pair of gypsies sat close toward him. If you want to share my food. Oh, I don't think they're interested in your food there, Gino. Monica teased. Yeah, those ladies are hungry for something else. Colin smirked as Rio went through the same kind of ordeal. Come on, hands off ladies. Rio said in a tone that indicated he was actually enjoying it. I love men who know how to eat. One Gaispi said as she was already groping Rio by his abs. Suzaku, would you care for some of this? It's quite delicious. Euphemia offered Suzaku a spoonful of food, which he took as she fed it directly to him. Thanks Euphi. Ah, you two are so cute. Rivals teased. They do make such a darling couple. Nunnally teased before turning to her friend next to her. What about you, Alice? Are you enjoying your meal? It's delicious. Alice said with the faintest of smiles. Ayano tried to offer some of her food to the boy next to her as well. Akito, you've got to try this meuniere. I'll pass. Akito said without hesitation, much to everyone's surprise. What's wrong? You don't like fish? Orpheus asked. I don't understand how anyone can eat that stuff. Akito said. Seriously, you don't like any kind of seafood? Rai questioned. What about sushi or prawn? Suzaku offered. Lobster, crab cakes, salmon, Shirley asked. Even I enjoy the occasional shrimp. Even Lelouch said. Are you allergic to seafood, Akito? Nunnally asked. If you are, we're sorry. Not allergic, I just don't like it. Akito tried to look away, not expecting Ryo to suddenly appear behind him. What kind of 11 won't eat fish? He questioned as he placed his arm around his shoulder in an assertively friendly manner. Come on Akito, just give it a try. Don't knock it till you try it. Gino told him. No way. He tried to force himself away. Well, this won't do at all. Millie stood up as she grabbed Akito by the shoulders. Come on Ryo. Help me hold him down. You got it. Ryo and Millie held onto him tight. Ayano, you shove it in. Guys, come on. We shouldn't force him. Shirley tried to protest. He doesn't have to try it if he doesn't want to. Yuffie also protested, but despite that, the group couldn't stop themselves from laughing, even Alice and Sarah smirked at their antics. Dinner soon came to an end as everyone lied back in exhaustion, allowing the food to digest. Some people were even getting ready to turn in for the night. The eldest of the gypsies, the one in black that had previously tried to scam them, was among those preparing to leave. Well, that's enough fun for one night. However, she almost tripped and fell, but Sarah was quick to catch her. Here, let me help walk you back. Sarah offered. The immortal helped the elderly gypsy walk back toward the wagons, a lantern in one hand, and the elderly woman's in the other. You know, you may keep your distance from others, but you're such a sweet child underneath. I'm not a child. Trust me on that one. Sarah commented. No, you're certainly older than you let on, I can tell. The gypsy said. But, I think there might be more of a child inside than you think. I can offer you a reading if you like. Read my fortune? Sarah questioned. Yes, if you want of course. Sarah shrugged. What could it hurt? They both kneeled on the floor of one of the wagons as Sarah saw the gypsy lay out a parchment that had something akin to a star or even a pentagram on it with various other markings all across. She'd seen similar symbols with other fortune tellers she's met in her long life, as well as cultish practices. As she heard the old woman chanting, while rolling a cluster of colored rocks in her hands like a pair of dice, she didn't really think this would do much for her, but she thought she'd humor the old woman. The rocks were thrown toward the ground before the woman spoke. You've been touched by the devil. You've seen his face. His power dwells within you. A great and terrible evil looms over you like a shadow. No offense, but I've been told stuff like that for a while now. Sarah said. People say I'm a witch, so of course I've been told that I've consorted with the devil or demons or whatever. You are no witch. Witches are those who give their souls to the devil in exchange for power. But you did not give up your soul, rather your soul was taken from you. It doesn't matter if it was taken or I gave it up, I've lost my soul a long time ago. Sarah said as she looked down with a sad expression. Would you like to have it back? The gypsy asked, surprising Sarah. When something is lost, it can also be found. Would you like to find your soul? Sarah didn't know what to say. Find her soul. For a long time, she had been dead inside. It wasn't until she met Lelouch and Optimus, and began to experience new things by working and fighting alongside them that she began to feel emotions again. She knew that she wanted to stay with them, but at the same time, she couldn't help but fear that she would outlive them like everyone else. Of course, Cybertronians had much longer lifespans when compared to humans, but they were still mortal, and they could die all the same, but she couldn't. Her greatest fear was being left alone again, but at the same time, that fear seemed more like an inevitable reality, and this war against the Decepticons seemed like a distraction from it. But, find her soul again. Was that even possible? Her thoughts were interrupted when the elder gypsy gently touched her hand. You've already begun to find your soul. Your heart beats with joy, fear, sorrow, rage, hope, and love. Slowly, your soul will return to you. You may have experienced terrible hardships, but you are stronger than you know. Soon, everything you've endured, it will all be worth it. How can you know that? Sarah asked, emotion creeping through her voice. You don't know what I've been through. Maybe not, but I have faith. The elder gypsy smiled. Because if the devil exists, then there must be a God out there as well. Maybe not the same God you hear in churches, but a God. After all, if there is evil in the world, then there must be good too. She didn't quite know what to say, but those words reminded Sarah of the time she spoke with the original primes. That was true, they were evidence that as long as there is evil, good will always rise against it. They were even willing to allow her to form a contact with Optimus and give him a power that instilled hope in people. The immortal smiled as she felt the hope in her chest only grow larger than before. The next day. Yeah, alright, I understand Alita. Lelouch said over the phone. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you. He got off the phone before speaking to his friends, teammates, and the gypsies. Thank you for being so hospitable to us, but tonight will be our last night. So we're really heading back? Colin asked. Yeah, things are getting a little dicey with the EU and Euro-Britannia again. Lelouch explained. We spend the rest of the day here, but tomorrow the Autobots are gonna come and pick us up. We still got a job to do. Pretty much everyone present looked with understanding yet disappointed expressions. Ah well, it was fun while it lasted. Millie said with a sigh. Yeah, I really liked it here. Gino added. No rest for the wicked after all. Orpheus commented. It's not like the Decepticons are taking a vacation themselves. The gypsies were already in tears. You're really planning to leave us so soon? Sorry, but war's calling and we can't wait much longer. Rai winced. Thank you for everything though. Suzaku said honestly. We won't forget any of you. We'll miss you kids so much. Yes, we'll miss you too. Layla was crying as well, along with Nunnally, Euphemia, Anna, and Shirley. You made us feel so welcome here, we can't thank you enough, Nunnally said with watery eyes. This was honestly the most fun I'd ever had. I'll cherish this memory always. Yuffie said. You mean all the memories of the hard work they put us through? Ayano said with a wincing grin. I'm sure they'll look back on our free labor fondly. Yukiya commented. Please grannies. Ryo was also in tears, much to everyone's surprise. Don't you dare go senile and forget me, okay? Suddenly, most of the gypsies began to pile all around Ryo, as well as Suzaku, Gino, and Orpheus. Oh, how can we ever forget such beautiful boys? These bodies are unforgettable. One Gaispe even began to caress Lelouch's face once more. And this pretty face is one I will never forget. Sarah shook her head with a smile. Well, if it's going to be our last night together, let's at least make the most of it. We'll prepare the biggest feast we've done yet. Whoa, Sarah, you really seem into this. Rivals looked in surprise. Well, as someone who's been dead inside for probably longer than any human in history, I'd say it's time we begin to live things up a bit, wouldn't you agree? She said with a grin. As everyone gathered all the necessary food and items to prepare for the feast later tonight, Ayano had brought up several buckets of water when Colin walked up to her and handed her a sheathed kodachi. Hey, I think this is yours. Colin said as Ayano took it. Sorry it took so long, Layla wanted to give it back to you after our last mission. But when things got crazy, we thought it'd be best to take a mental break before giving it back. What? Thought I'd go berserk and slice you all with it. Ayano joked, causing them both to laugh. But thanks, seriously. So, were your ancestors samurai? Colin asked out of curiosity. Yep, at least that's what I've been told. Ayano replied as the two sat down together. But, I wouldn't know too much considering I've never been to Japan. You were born in Europe? Colin asked in surprise. Yeah, my sister and I. Ayano confirmed. So were Ryo and Yukiya. It was a pretty good life for a while, until Britannia invaded Japan and EU politics choose to put us 11s in internment camps, even though we were full European citizens. But, I'd love to go to Japan one day, all of us. You're not missing out on much now. Colin said with a sad expression. Britannia steamed rolled over most of it, and the cons wiped out everything else. Now the whole thing is nothing more than a graveyard. I know, Ayano admitted, but still smiled. But, I'd still love to see it. To rebuild. Colin smiled a bit herself. So, your sister, what happened to her? She died. Ayano said, looking down. We were part of Ryo's gang, but one by one, they all bit the bullet, even she did. Now the three of us are all that's left. I'm sorry. I lost my brother the same way. Colin said. And it's not just him, I had somebody else who was also like a brother to me. An Autobot named Cliffjumper, but he ended up dying too. I know they both died fighting for a cause that was worth it, but, I still miss them. Guess we have more in common than I thought, huh? Ayano said as the two exchanged emotional smiles. Later that night. Celebrations were high. After everyone ate, Millie and the gypsies decided to throw something akin to a dance party. Instruments such as flutes, lutes, accordions, violins, and other similar tools were used to bring the music as nearly everyone danced around the fire. Some danced with the gypsies or even by themselves. Rai had offered Shirley a dance, and the two seemed to be enjoying their time together. Even Suzaku and Yuffie were dancing together. Ayano danced on her own, and Ryo appeared to be dancing alongside a few gypsies. Millie had even offered rivals a chance to dance, which he accepted with little hesitation. Even Orpheus appeared to be sharing a dance with Monica. Anna looked around with smiles as Yukiya approached her. "Hey, everyone else is having fun. Wanna join in?" He offered his hand. Anna looked in surprise with a blush before she smiled and accepted. "Yes, I would love to dance." They joined in the celebration with everyone else. Gino walked over to Misty. "Yo, you wanna dance too?" he asked in a friendly smile. "I honestly don't know how to dance," Misty said. "Oh, come on, it's super easy. Let me show you." Gino took her hand and pulled her along. Nunnally even ran up to Alice. "Come on Alice, let's go." "Wait, Nunnally, I don't know how to dance either and." "You don't have to know. Just have fun with it," Nunnally encouraged as she took both of Alice's hands and began to pull her along. Nunnally laughed the whole time she twirled with Alice, who couldn't stop herself from smiling and laughing along with her, honestly having fun herself. Colin was even approached by Lelouch. "So, you want to dance?" he asked, offering his hand. The redhead sighed. "You know I'm not one of those pick-up dancey types, right?" she reminded. A playful smirk fell on his face. "What's the matter Colin? Scared? That's not like you." "Scared?" Colin then looked to him with a borderline evil smirk. "Oh, it is so on." She grabbed his hands rather fiercely and pulled him into something of an aggressive dance. Meanwhile, Nina sat down with a smile, not really interested in dancing, but simply chose to observe everyone with a smile. The moment she set her eyes on Euphemia and Suzaku however, her smile faded slightly. "Must be hard, Millie sat down next to her former classmate. "Seeing someone you like with somebody else. Is it really that obvious?" Nina asked, looking away. "Even back at Ashford, it was pretty easy to tell you had a thing for Euphemia." Millie began. "But it must have been hard considering she was a princess, and you were a commoner. But now, in this crazy new world where social status doesn't really matter anymore, the time when you might actually have a chance, you find she's into somebody else. I won't lie and say that I'm not upset," Nina admitted. "But, she just seems so happy. And if she's happy, then I guess I'm happy," Nina said with a sad smile. Millie couldn't help but smile as well. "You know Nina, I'm really proud of you. A year ago, you were terrified of even walking out on the streets and catching even a glance at somebody who was Japanese. But now look at you. You're working with people you'd never thought you'd work with, even freaking aliens, and you're even admitting you're alright with your crush being someone else and someone who's Japanese no less. You've grown," Millie said as she put a friendly arm around the girl's shoulder. "Thanks Millie. I like to think I have too." Nina accepted the gesture with a warm smile. As everyone continued to party, Sarah and Layla both sat close to Akito. The immortal girl simply smiled while Layla openly laughed. "This is so much fun. Well, let's not let the party stop. The night is still young." Rivals approached. "Hey Akito, you wanna join us?" Gino asked. "Cut me out," he muttered to himself before standing up. "This is stupid." He began to walk away into the forest, much to their surprise. "Geez, what crawled up his tailpipe and died?" Rivals commented. "I'll talk to him." Layla stood up and followed Akito, with Sarah casting a concerning glance in the direction she walked off into. Layla quickly made her way through the forest before she finally spotted Akito sitting on a log alone in a small clearing, the moonlight shining over him. She couldn't quite explain why, but Layla could tell there was something really bothering Akito. Mustering a bit of courage, she walked closer to him. "Akito, can we talk?" she asked as she sat down next to him. "Are you alright?" "I'm afraid," Akito shuddered. "Moments like this always make me feel that something bad is just around the corner. This reminds me of that night, the moon looked so pretty, my parents and the rest of the clan were laughing and having a great time, except for my brother. Your brother. Layla remembered seeing Shin back in their previous mission. Just like that, they were dead, Akito continued. So was I at first, but for some reason I came back. His entire body began to shake with his eyes, the painful memory resurfacing. And when my brother saw me, he just said, Akito, die now. Layla covered her mouth with a gasp as she continued to listen to Akito. I was supposed to die. With the others, he was on the verge of breaking down, his body shaking even more. But I didn't. His body then suddenly began to calm as he spoke in a more murderous tone of voice. There's no hope for my brother. And I have no choice. I must kill him. Before he knew it, Layla had wrapped her arms around him and pulled him into a comforting embrace. Though this was a surprise for him, he made no effort to resist. Akito, I'm happy that he didn't kill you that day. That you survived, she said as her voice began to crack. She pulled him in closer, and he honestly felt more relieved, not just at getting this in the open, but that someone was actually providing him comfort. If you had died, I'd never would have met you. She pulled away and helped him to stand on his feet. Come on, let's head back. Layla would soon lead Akito back to the campfire, and it is there that they soon danced as well. It was honestly the most beautiful out of all the dances present, so much so that everyone around them couldn't help but be mesmerized by it. In that moment, all the demons that had plagued Akito seemed to vanish, not entirely as he knew they would return, but it would seem they have gone silent for this night. He truly did enjoy himself, as did Layla. Sarah continued to watch not only their dance, but everyone else having fun, laughing, eating, drinking, and continued dancing. Though she never danced herself, this was enough. She smiled as tears flowed from her eyes almost automatically. The next day, a large brown bridge portal opened up in front of the group of young soldiers as they prepared to return to Castle Weisswolf. So, you guys are all coming with us? Rai asked the group consisting of Nunnally, Alice, Shirley, Millie, Rivals, Nina, and Misty. Absolutely. I'd love to see the castle, as well as see how Bumblebee, Alita, and the others are doing. Nunnally smiled. I'm sure we can find a way for you guys to help. Suzaku seemed to accept. Even Lelouch was silently glad, though he knew they could be put in danger from this, he was happy that his sister and friends were joining him. As the group prepared to enter the portal, Ayano groaned. Please tell me traveling through this is easier without a nightmare. Oh no, it is worse. Colin smirked. It's so much worse. God no, Ayano gulped as one by one, they all entered the ground bridge portal. Layla was first, followed by Anna, Akito, Shirley, Rivals, Ayano, Ryo, Yukiya, Nunnally, Alice, Misty, Orpheus, Monica, Gino, Millie, Nina, Colin, Suzaku, Euphemia, Rai, and Colin. Lelouch and Sarah were among the last before they turned around to see the group of gypsies one last time who waved them goodbye as some were already shedding tears. Lelouch gave a wave himself before stepping into the portal. There's still so much left for us to do. Sarah thought to herself, still looking at the gypsies. I can't even imagine how this is all going to play out. But one thing is for certain, I did enjoy my time here. And I hope, maybe one day, we can all do something like this again. Right, Optimus. With that, Sarah smiled and waved to the gypsies before stepping into the portal, which shortly closed behind her. The brightness falls, and your entire nation would thus have more to gain by joining our side. Starscream proposed to the High Eunuchs. You are aware of what we've done to Britannia, so it would be far more beneficial to have the Decepticons as your allies as opposed to your enemies. The Decepticon second in command, alongside the former Britannian prince turned Decepticon ambassador, Schneisel were currently in the meeting with the true ruling body of the Chinese Federation about solidifying a possible alliance with this superpower, both parties meeting the Vermilion Forbidden City. Schneisel and the High Eunuchs currently sitting at a table on the balcony of the main palace, with Starscream himself standing on equal height to their elevated level. Oh, most assuredly, we wouldn't dare think of fighting the likes of you. One of the High Eunuchs spoke. We're not foolish enough to take on the force that ultimately wiped out the Britannian Empire in less than a few weeks. But what assurances do we have that we will be treated as equal partners in this arrangement? Another asked. An alliance such as this has to be built on by trust, and the name, Decepticons, doesn't quite inspire that particular virtue. Understandable. Schneisel acknowledged. But as someone who works closely with the Decepticon High Command, I can assure you that you will be compensated accordingly for your cooperation. There is one thing I would like to point out, however. Gao Hai said. While we all know that we, the High Eunuchs, are truly the ones in power, there are many in the Federation that see the Empress as their true leader. If we get too sloppy, we may face quite the rebellion. Some of his fellow eunuchs looked toward him in surprise. What is this, Gao Hai? Are you suddenly developing a sense of compassion for those insects? Insects that just so happen to number over 1 billion. Gao Hai reminded. One can easily step on 5 or 6 cockroaches, but that many can easily overwhelm a group of people such as us. He then turned towards Starscream. Not to mention that your enemies, the Autobots and the Black Knights, have inspired several rebellions throughout the world, and they would be more than able to provide support should the commoners revolt. Then use your military to wipe out the people. Starscream pointed out flatly. It shouldn't be that difficult. Starscream, while I applaud your desire for a direct approach, I wouldn't be so quick to rule out the possibility of the military themselves rebelling. Schneisel told his Decepticon ally. And as Gao Hai pointed out, any rebellion in the Chinese Federation could gain support of the Black Knights and the Autobots, which could easily disrupt our plans. That said, of course, I believe I may have a solution that could solidify our alliance with minimal bloodshed. Meanwhile, on the other side of the palace, the Decepticon Seeker, Thundercracker, stood at the other side of the palace, merely observing the rest of the city with his own optics. He was never one for politics, that was always something Starscream took on. Not that he thought Starscream was a great politician. In fact, Thundercracker honestly thought if Starscream was made the head of a planet, or even a country, he'd run it into the ground in record time. His days-long reign as Decepticon leader after Megatron's apparent demise at the hands of Metroplex was proof enough for that. It was honestly a wonder why Megatron even kept him around, maybe just a punching bag to vent out his frustrations. It was honestly the main reason he attempted to abandon Starscream during the mission for the Immobilizer. The Decepticon cause would be more efficient without him. Rather than continue to think on this, Thundercracker looked to his own handheld tablet to study more on the Chinese Federation's history and culture, if anything just to pass the time. As far as he could tell, the Emperor and/or Empress have always been the one in command, with the High Eunuchs acting as their advisors. That is until this Tianzi girl became Empress after the deaths of her parents. Though official reports claimed it was due to an accident, one glance at the High Eunuchs and Thundercracker assumed they were directly responsible, and it wasn't difficult to see why. Someone so young as the ruling figure could be easily taken advantage of. She was honestly just a puppet, with the High Eunuchs simply seizing power for themselves. No wonder Starscream is able to hold a conversation with them. Like 2 peas in a pod, as the humans say. Thundercracker's attention was soon caught by a childlike gasp as he glanced to the side to see none other than Tianzi herself looking at him in fright. This was the Empress. He knew she would be young, but actually seeing her was surprising. He didn't expect her to be so small. There was a part of him that felt some sympathy toward her, knowing her life was more or less under the direct control of what was basically a den of Starscreams who likely do not care for her well-being in the slightest. Thundercracker was not a softie by any means. Most of the stuff he did was usually based off logic and efficiency, what serves the cause most beneficially. But he would be lying to say that he didn't feel some form of pity for a small creature that had no control over her own life whatsoever. Your Highness. He heard a voice speak up as he saw a trio of individuals, 1 human male and 2 females, quickly make their way to her side. You shouldn't venture off so far from the palace. You could. The man took notice of Thundercracker and looked at him with a glare, followed by everyone else. What is going on here? K-Gaia questioned as she, Sayoko, and Shink glared at the Seeker. Nothing. Thundercracker replied. The child wondered in my direction. I made no form of contact. K-Gaia turned her attention back to the young Empress. Are you alright, Tianzi? Yes. She nodded. You are K-Gaia Sumeragi. Thundercracker spoke to the Japanese girl. You came from a rather influential family in the former Japanese government before Britannia's invasion. Even then your family had influence in the now defunct group of Kyoto. But currently, you live in the Vermilion Forbidden City under the sanctuary of the Empress. And you are a Decepticon. K-Gaia said, still maintain a glare, not showing any signs of intimidation toward the massive metal being in front of her. One of the metallic monsters that massacred hundreds of thousands of my people. I take no joy in that. Thundercracker pointed out. But I will not deny my hand in that either. Is that supposed to be honorable? Shink questioned. Taking no joy in murder and yet not denying it. You are a soldier, aren't you? Thundercracker asked. Isn't that part of your occupation, to kill? It's one thing to kill other soldiers who can fight back, it's something else entirely when you attack civilians who can't defend themselves. Shink stated. Fair enough. Thundercracker acknowledged. Perhaps you should escort the Empress to the palace. The eunuchs may worry, and you wouldn't want to agate Starscream any further, he has a habit of making things worse than they need to be. They still glared at him but understood his reasoning. Come along, Your Highness. Sayoko helped Kagaya and Shink escort Tianzi back to the palace, leaving Thundercracker alone again. There was a part of the Seeker that suspected Kagaya was actually an informant for the Black Knights and the Autobots. Given her family's history, it wouldn't be difficult to make that assumption. However, he also did not have any proof, and it was because of that he wouldn't tell Starscream either. As he said, Starscream tends to make things worse than they need to be, intentional or not. If Kagaya wasn't a spy, then his actions would make things increasingly more complicated. He mentally sighed. I hate politics. Euro Britannia, St. Petersburg. You wanted to speak with me. Shinhyuga Shang said as he stood in the nightmare hangar, alone with Steeljaw for the two to converse in private. Yes, I want to get right to the point. I know about your Geass. Steeljaw revealed, causing Shin to narrow his eyes. Oh, don't be so surprised, and no need to be hostile either. I actually find such an ability to be unique. And suffice to say, you're not the only one in our ranks who possesses that kind of power. Do you possess one? Shin asked. I wish, things would be so much easier for me if I did. Steeljaw replied. But that's beside the point, I hope you can give me a demonstration of your unique ability. Why would I do that? Shin questioned. Because if we're going to work together, we'd be much more efficient if we have a greater knowledge of each other's abilities. The wolf-like deception answered. Like I've said before, I recognize the look in your eyes. The longing for destruction, the tired and exhausted feeling of this boring existence. I'm not necessarily an anarchist per se, but I'm somebody who can help you achieve your ambitions. And what of your ambitions, Decepticon? The Euro-Britannian soldier asked. Won't my lust for destruction conflict with your cause of domination? Both can actually benefit from one another. Steeljaw answered. Sort of like a symbiotic relationship. This world needs destruction before it can be remade into something else. We can help each other. I desire for this world to be made into a place for Decepticons, you desire the destruction of the old. Shin chuckled. You believe I want to remake this world. You couldn't be more wrong. Perhaps, a Geass sigil manifested in his left eye. You should see things from my perspective, on the other side. However, Steeljaw chuckled himself. I see, so you can command others to do your bidding. For one of the few times in his life, Shin gasped in surprise. But, how? See, our side done extensive research on the power of Geass. Steeljaw explained. We can tell that in their initial stage, the power cannot affect Cybertronians. The energy provided by our sparks is simply too strong to be overridden by that of a Geass ability. However, we have also learned that Geass abilities can evolve over time and grow stronger. Yours seems to only manifest in your left eye, while it seems there are others who can manifest it in both. Now he had Shin's undivided attention as his Geass power deactivated. It seems there are things about Geass even you don't know. Steeljaw answered. But we can help provide that. Join our cause, Shin. Became a Decepticon all your own, I'd be more than happy to help show you the ropes. As I said before, why would I help you when all I seek is destruction, and you want domination? Shin replied. If you want my honest opinion, I couldn't care less what you do. Whatever ideals the Decepticons aspire to, I'm not interested. All I want, is to see this world covered in corpses. Which is why I admit that I admire the destruction the Decepticons are capable of. Seeing your forces completely decimate Britannia brought me unquenchable amounts of joy. He said with a sadistic smile. Steeljaw laughed. At least you're honest about what you want. Like I said though, we can both benefit by helping each other. In order to make this world into what we want, we have to destroy what's already here. So why not help us along the way? We can work out the details about what to do after once we get there. That being said, let us begin tearing this world down. We'll start with the EU and even Euro-Britannia. So, what do you say, brother? He offered Shin his claw. Shin's maniacal grin only grew. Sounds like a plan to me. He placed his hand on Steeljaws, solidifying their partnership. Castle Weisswolf. This is amazing. Shirley beamed as she, Rivals, and Millie were shown around the castle by Anna. Currently the group was descending an elevator to the lower levels. A real live castle. Yeah, and it's not one of those snobbish Britannian palaces either. Rivals added. An actual medieval castle. It is medieval, right? He asked Anna. It was, yes. Anna confirmed. Of course, we've had to give it a modern remodel in order for it to function as a base, but at the same time, maintain the overall structure. Well, I think you did an amazing job. This place is incredible. Shirley continued to beam. Millie chuckled. We spent the last 6 months living in an alien starship, yet you get all excited about an old castle. The Ark is pretty cool, but that doesn't mean this castle isn't cool either. Shirley said. You know, I'd be very interested to see this Ark myself. Anna said. Just interacting with the Autobots has provided an incredible number of advancements to our technology. I can only imagine what more they have to offer. Oh, trust us, Anna, the bots' tech is truly more than meets the eye. Millie teased as the elevator came to a stop. There, the group entered a laboratory where Nina and 2 other young women researchers, Chloe and Hilda, were working with a blue Alexander with a pink secondary color. Nunnally and Misty were present as well. Currently, the Nightmare was in its insect mode, on a treadmill before quickly standing upright. Alright, lag time has been cut down by 50%. Not bad, let's keep going. Nina said as she and the others continued to work. Hey, what's going on? Rivals asked as the group walked into the laboratory. Is that a new Nightmare? Yep, the Alexander Valiant, Chloe confirmed. It's much faster than the original model, able to better handle more advanced nightmares and even the Decepticons. The battle data we obtained during the Sloanum operation has really helped. Hilda added. Are you doing okay in there, Alice? Nunnally asked the test pilot of the Alexander Valiant. I'm alright, Alice said as she worked the controls. The controls are basic enough, I'm sure I can manage this Nightmare with little issue. She's very adept for someone so young. Nina observed. This Nightmare might not be as advanced as the Lancelot or Gurren, but it'll definitely run circles around the cons. Let's see if we can kick it up a notch. Wow, Nina, you're really in your element here. Millie said. So, is everyone getting new Nightmares like these? Shirley asked. Custom Alexander Valiants have already been completed for Ryo, Ayano, and Yukiya. Misty confirmed. They should be testing them outside now. What about Akito? Rivals asked. I mean, the guy's a total badass, he should get one too. Oh, Akito's getting something really special. Nina said with a grin. You wanna see a sneak peek? She brought up the schematics for the Nightmare the Ghost of Hannibal would soon receive. Suffice to say, the former student council members, even Nunnally, looked in surprise. Whoa, Rivals muttered. That looks pretty intense. Millie commented. What kind of Nightmare is that? Shirley asked. The Alexander Liberté. Anna recognized the design. I designed it myself, but it will be some time before it's ready. You designed this all by yourself? Shirley asked before looking in amazement. You're incredible, Anna. Anna tried to look away with a shy grin and a blush. I try my best. She's certainly a lot more humble than other certain scientists we know. Rivals whispered to Millie. Nunnally soon giggled. Imagine what would happen if Lloyd, Rakshata, or even Ratchet saw this. Oh, that would be a sight to behold. Millie smirked. Meanwhile, outside the castle, the of Autobots and Black Knights, consisting of Colin, RC, Suzaku, Bumblebee, Rai, Bulkhead, Gino, Smokescreen, Monica, Prowl, Jetfire, even Sophie and Claus watched from a safe distance as Sideswipe, Strongarm, and Grindcore engaged in a sparring match against Ryo, Ayano, and Yukiya, each of them in their own custom Alexander Valiants. Ryo's was blue and orange, Ayano's was blue and violet, while Yukiya's was blue and green. Ryo's axe collided with Sideswipe's sword, both smirking at each other as they continued to clash their respective weapons. Though Sideswipe couldn't see his face, he could tell Ryo was having just as much fun as he was. At the same time, Strongarm fired her Energon crossbow at the Alexander Valiant piloted by Ayano, which was in its insect mode before driving directly at her, transforming to draw a sword-like weapon, which Strongarm parried with the blunt of her crossbow before moving back to get some distance, but Ayano wasn't about to give her the chance. Yukia's Alexander maintained its own distance as it fired its own long-range weapon at Grindcore. The larger Autobot crossed his arms to take the hit. However, every single Autobot and pilot present couldn't help but smirk, clearly enjoying themselves. Even the ever-serious Strongarm was having fun as well. "Look at them go," Gino stated with a grin. "I so wanna get in on this. You and me both, buddy," Smokescreen said in the same manner. "Looks like a ton of fun. I'm sure you can ask them once they're done, pretty sure they'll be happy to oblige." Monica teased the pair. "Reaction timing is much quicker than with their previous models," Sophie said as she monitored the data from her tablet. "Seems these new systems are able to better keep up battle instinct." "It's not just the systems," Jetfire said. "Their experience has helped them to grow as pilots. And sparring with Autobots is a way for them to get used to this sort of field of combat. Even though their nightmares are less advanced than ours, pretty sure they could give us a run for our money if we fought them." Rai commented. "It's not just the weapons, it's who's using it," Prowl said. "Having an advanced weapon can only carry you so far if you yourself don't know how to use it. Well, I'd say these guys have done a pretty good job so far," Bulkhead said. "Like to see M take on the cons again with those bad boys." Suzaku couldn't help but chuckle. "What's so funny?" Colin asked. "It doesn't seem that long ago that most of us were probably in a similar situation," Suzaku said. "Less than a year ago, each of us were rookies, ourselves, using our nightmares just to keep up with Autobots and Decepticons. Now here we are, assessing them like we're the experts or something." "I'd say we are the experts at this point," Colin said with a prideful grin. "How much of a con kill count do each of us have at this point?" "A lot less than us, that's for certain," RC teased, causing Colin to look toward her partner with a playful stink eye. Most of the group shared a laugh at that as Bumblebee cast a glance towards Claus, who helped himself to another swig of his flask before noticing the yellow Autobot looking down on him. "Oh, you want a drink? Wait, do bots even drink? And if you do you have any alcohol?" Bumblebee's only response was a sitcom laugh through his radio. "So is that a yes or a no?" Claus asked. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Ironwell vessel, Lelouch, Ultra Magnus, Elita 1, Euphemia, Sarah, Orpheus, Layla, and Akito all gathered together as Optimus Prime had contacted them. This was the very first time Layla had met Optimus, though it wasn't in person like she had hoped. It was still nice as she admitted it was an honor to meet him, an honor he likewise shared. But that wasn't the main purpose of their meeting. Optimus, with the aid of Cornelia, Wizard, and Kyoto on his end, had managed to find information regarding Shinhyuga Shang, which Optimus himself would report. Akito also took this moment to explain what happened between him and his brother before, with Layla reluctantly asking him. Though it would serve as a tactical advantage for them to learn more about Shin, it was no less painful for Akito to recall that awful night. Everyone had their own different reactions to the story. Lelouch was incredibly disturbed with a look of disgust on his face. Alita looked toward Akito in pity. Ultra Magnus tried to maintain a stoic facade, but even he couldn't stop his fists from clenching in anger. Yuffie had covered her mouth in clear shock with tears welling up in her eyes. Orpheus' face contorted with rage. Even Sarah looked more than a little disturbed. And finally, Optimus' own expression on the bridge's screen was one of sympathy. "And I thought my family was messed up," Lelouch commented. "Akito, I'm so sorry," Yuffie said, tears flowing down her eyes already. Akito said nothing as he looked down, fists clenching at his sides as Layla looked toward him in sympathy. This would explain Akito's own Geass command. Sarah thought. He was too young to understand what Shin meant when he said to die. I can't imagine what that must have been like for you." Alita spoke aloud toward the young soldier. "Akito, thank you. This will help us, but you have my sympathies." "Thank you," Akito muttered. "You have mine as well, young Akito." Optimus spoke aloud. "Shinhyuga Shang, as you mentioned, appears to be nothing short of a madman. A stark contrast to his military background. It would also explain why there are no records of him prior to his adoption into the Euro-Britannian Shang family. Ultra Magnus said. With his entire family deceased, there would be nobody left to say anything of him. Though he spoke in a collected tone, he made sure to do it so it wouldn't upset Akito. Magnus may be a by-the-book military commander, but that didn't mean he had no sympathy to those who were clearly traumatized. And from there, it seems he was able to work his way through the military until being enlisted in the Order of Michael. Orpheus put in. Euro-Britannia didn't share the homeland's discriminatory views towards the numbers, so he faced little resistance in his ascension through the military's ranks. I've met the leader of the Order of Michael before. Euphemia said. Sir Manfredi, he was the Knight of Two before becoming the head of the Order. He was a good man, one of the few I could hold a decent conversation with and did not share any views of Britannia's prejudice and discrimination. But I've never met anybody from the Order of Michael, much less Shin. With Peacemark and Kyoto's connections, we were able to learn what has transpired in Euro-Britannia. Optimus spoke. Official reports claim that Manfredi died of suicide, though I believe we can all speculate that was not the case. Shin must have used his Geass. Sarah assumed. Told Manfredi to take his own life so that there would be no evidence of a murder. That sounds like something my brother would do. Akito admitted. It's almost as if Shin is the opposite of Suzaku. Lelouch commented, getting everyone's attention, especially Euphemia. I can't understand what exactly Shin's motives are, but Suzaku joined the Britannian military because he wanted to change the system from within, facing the discrimination policies of the old empire head-on. He wanted to do it the right way, with honor, or at least what he viewed of it. But he was honest and sincere. Shin, on the other hand, faced no such discriminations, yet used morally unethical methods to get to where he is now. You are correct, Lelouch. Ultra Magnus agreed. It seems that would make Shin a perfect foil for Suzaku. Of course, Shin is nothing like Suzaku, or even like Akito. Euphemia commented. Agreed. Layla nodded. Shin is a vile man and must be stopped. And he will be, but if we're going to stop him, as well as the Decepticons, we need to gather more allies. Alita said. We've made good progress with the EU, how are things in the Chinese Federation, Optimus? Based on Kagaya and Shinki's report, Schneisel and Starscream have made contact with the High Eunuchs and appear to be negotiating an alliance. Optimus revealed, Lelouch and Euphemia sharing a glance at the mention of their brother. Gao Hai is attempting to slow them down, but we cannot guarantee that will last forever. Is there anything we can do to help? Layla asked. Allow myself and those with me to worry about the Chinese Federation, you should remain focused on the EU and Euro-Britannia. Optimus replied. He's right. Akito did what he usually did to push away his inner turmoil to focus on the task at hand. Lelouch, Euphemia, do you believe you can use your connection with Valaine's to reach out to Maribel? She is your sister, after all. And if someone of royal status of the old Britannia, as well as the current leader of Euro-Britannia, were to assist us, I have little doubt the rest of the state will follow. That would make sense, Sarah said, and the promise of revenge against the Decepticons could help motivate them as well. Reaching out to Maribel would be difficult, Lelouch said. Based on what I've heard, she was ruthless in cracking down any anti-Britannian resistance before it fell. I'm afraid that is true. Euphemia agreed. Ever since terrorists took the lives of her mother and sister. Actually, that's not entirely correct. Orpheus said. That got everyone's attention. Is there something you wish to share with us, Oz? Ultra Magnus questioned. Yes. Orpheus nodded. For one thing, it wasn't terrorists that attacked Maribel's home. It was VV. Nearly everyone looked toward Orpheus with a shocked expression, particularly Sarah, as this was news to her as well. The late Emperor's brother? Alita questioned. Yes. Orpheus confirmed. The one who has the ability to grant a Geass, and likely gave Maribel hers. You are certain Maribel has a Geass? Optimus asked. I can confirm that, Sarah said. When we all met and fought in Slonim, there were so many different types of Geass all gathered together, I could feel them resonating with one another. I felt Lelouch's, Layla's, Ray's, Orpheus, Shin's, even Maribel. She has a Geass. I don't know what kind of power it is, but she has one. How could this have happened? Layla asked. Sarah, You told us that my father had a Geass, one that could alter memories. Lelouch said to the green-haired immortal, which she nodded in confirmation. That must have been how he did it. After VV's attack, Charles probably altered Maribel's memory of the event to not only cover his brother's tracks but grant him a loyal pawn in the process. He looked away in disgust at his father's actions, something Euphemia shared in as well. But how do you know of this, Orpheus? Ultra Magnus asked Oz. Because Maribel's sister, Yulia, didn't die. She survived. Orpheus revealed, further surprising everyone. She was taken to the Geass Order once VV discovered that. That's where I met her, we were close. And when we escaped along with Miss X, I mean Misty, VV's personal lapdogs, Pluton, hunted us down. Misty and I survived, but Yulia, she wasn't so lucky. Orpheus turned away with a pained expression, the memory still haunting him. Nearly everyone, even Akito and Ultra Magnus, looked toward Orpheus in sympathy. More and more conspiracies surrounding my vile father. Lelouch practically spat at the memory of his biological father, never once regretting the thought of Megatron killing him. If anything, Lelouch wanted to do the deed himself, but he was still glad to know his father got what he deserved. But, if Maribel is under the influence of a Geass, could you remove it? Euphemia looked to Sarah with a hopeful expression. I can, but I would have to make physical contact. Sarah confirmed. Even if it's indirect, such as through a nightmare, if I get a chance to connect with her, I can undo what Charles did to her. And she would join our side then? Layla asked. I remember Maribel was very happy with her mother and sister. If she knew the truth, and that the one who ruined her life is working with the Decepticons, a common enemy that we all wish to defeat, then yes, she would more than likely join us. Very well. Ultra Magnus accepted. If you are certain of this, then we can proceed with this objective. And as established before, it would help us gain support from Euro-Britannia. Alita said. We may even manage to organize a ceasefire and truce between them and the EU. That is, of course, the Decepticons don't find a way to screw it up. Akito commented. I've learned from personal experience, Akito, that the plans of the Decepticons can become complicated, chaotic, and unpredictable. Once we learn of their objective, we should be able to come up with a strategy. But until then, all we can do is wait. Then I encourage each of you to be ready. Optimus told them all. Do everything you can on your end, and we will do what we can here. Thank you, Optimus. Lelouch smiled. Oh, Optimus Prime. Layla spoke up, getting his attention. I know I've said this before, but I am honored to meet you, and I hope to one day soon, finally get the chance to meet you face to face. And I with you as well, young Layla. Optimus nodded with a smile before speaking to all of them again. Till all are one. With that, the leader of the Autobots signed out, leaving everyone else to make plans for what they need to do next, while also waiting for their enemy to make their next move. But one thing was certain, whatever Shin and the Decepticons were planning, it wasn't going to be pretty. Euro-Britannia, main military base, northernmost area of the sub-empire. Ashley Asura sat alone in the Nightmare Bay, looking over for the umpteenth time the report of the Slonim operation. He already knew how much of a disaster that was. The EU forces have pushed back against Euro-Britannia and taken more territory, but that wasn't what had him so upset. One would think he'd be excited, given he finally had a chance to take on the likes of the Autobots and Black Knights, that is if it didn't end up costing him half his entire squad. What he seemed more focused on were the casualty reports from that incident. Joanne Fabius, Renee Laurent, Jan Maines, and Simon Maricourt were officially confirmed as deceased. Contrary to his battle-crazy attitude, he did care for his subordinates, as he still remembered Joanne leaping in to take the otherwise fatal blow from the so-called Ghost of Hannibal, as well as the words spoken by said ghost, die, replaying in his head over and over. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a door opening, with none other than Maribel entering to look at the commander with concern. Oh look, the last member of the royal family has come to grace me with her presence. Ashley said in clear sarcasm and mocking fashion. Here to call me out on being a pussy for thinking about my dead soldiers. They're only soldiers, it's their place to die for our cause. Isn't that right? He questioned with a glare towards her. You don't like the imperial family, do you? Maribel asked. No. Ashley shook his head. Before the cons wiped them out, they were a bunch of self-righteous assholes who had no idea how the world worked. They grew up on the streets like me, then they'd understand. Personally, I'm glad the cons killed most of them off. About time they get a taste of their own medicine. He gave a howled chuckle. Well, what are you waiting for? Execute me. A lowly Euro-Britannian solider like me insulting your family should be enough of an excuse for anyone. Maribel looked at him with sympathy in her eyes. No, I won't do that. Because you might be right. He gave a glance her way as she sat down on a box to look at him at equal level. Most of my old family really didn't know what it's like to be in the center of the hell of war, with a few exceptions, my half-sister Cornelia being one of them. Otherwise, they just sit comfortably and complain whenever things don't go their way, even when one of their own dies. That was the same way when I lost my mother and sister, even two of my half-siblings Lelouch and Nunnally. Ashley looked on and listened as Maribel continued before she laughed. You wanna hear something funny? After my mother and sister were murdered by terrorists, I went to my father during their burial and questioned him what was going to be done. You want to know what he said? Nothing. His exact words were, they were weak, and the strong survive. That is the way of Britannia, and thus the world. You know the next thing I did. I grabbed a sword from a nearby guard and brought it to his neck, demanding to seek justice. That got a laugh out of Ashley. No way. You drew a sword on your old man. On the freaking emperor. How are you still alive after that? Maribel had a small smile herself. I wish I knew. Though he did exile me after that. I then went to attend the military academy, and eventually founded the Glinda Knights with my childhood friend, Aldrin. I cracked really hard on terrorists after that, not just out of what happened to my mother and sister, but because I wanted to gain more and more support, and eventually succeed my father and become the Empress. Ashley laughed even harder. Wow, and I thought you were crazy before. You, the Empress. Her smile didn't fade as she continued. Yep, that way I could govern Britannia the right way. Her smile finally faded. But, the Decepticons moved in, wiped out the Empire, and now here I am. When they invaded, I lost many of the soldiers I worked with, including my tactical advisor Johann Schwarzer. I know how you feel, Ashley. To lose someone you care for, believe me, I do. Okay, so you're not a royal bitch. Just a crazy one, he said with his wild smirk. We're both pretty crazy. Maribel replied, her smile returning before getting serious. That's why I want you to work with me. Ashley's smile faded as he looked toward Maribel in surprise. We both know the Decepticons are going to try something very soon, and we need all the people we trust on our side as we can get. So please, work with me so we can keep more of the people we care about from dying. She offered her his hand. Ashley was silent at first, and the look on his face was almost impossible to read. However, Maribel would get her answer as a slight grin formed on his face. Oh, what the hell? You got a deal, princess. He accepted her hand. Maribel was later called to the command center of the base where she sat alongside the other 4 Grand Masters and other commanders of the military, with Grand Duke Villain sitting on the throne above them. Below them, countless officers appeared to be working as well. Soon, a large door opened on the ground just below the command deck where the heads of the military and government currently sat, and all eyes set upon the Decepticon Steeljaw as he entered the large chambers. Once all eyes set upon him, looks of fear and disgust were evident to say, as were words spoken aloud by several commanders and officers. Vile Decepticon. Why do we have to work with him? How long before they destroy us along with the homeland? What exactly is he plotting? Andrea Farnese thought with suspicion, something Maribel shared before she cast a suspicious glance towards Shin, especially as he made eye contact with Steeljaw. Steeljaw didn't appear to be bothered by these comments, but instead smiled at them. Once he stood in front of the heads, Duke Villain spoke. Steeljaw, are we ready to begin? Yes, we are. Steeljaw replied. Up until now, Europia has managed to avoid an open confrontation. I'm honestly surprised they didn't push for one when Britannia fell. But count yourselves lucky, for you will be the ones attacking. So, for right now, just sit back and enjoy the show. The massive curtain behind him opened to reveal a massive screen that flickered on to show a barge with a power plant built on top of it in the middle of the ocean with countless windmills all around it. The power plant within the North Sea suddenly lit up with multiple explosions. At the top of the plant, Fracture and Thunderhoof had already detonated a series of bombs around several generators, causing half of the offshore plant to be engulfed in flames. For the revolution, Quillfire exclaimed as he fired his quills into several more generators on the other side, igniting more explosions. From below the ocean itself, most of the supporting struts were being literally devoured by the shark mode of Skybite. He moved like a torpedo in the water, his massive jaws crunching down and easily tearing through the struts as if they were tissue paper. Closer to the ocean floor, Underbite was doing the same thing, ripping off and devouring the supporting structure with his own appetite. Once their job was done, Underbite transformed and drove away with Skybite swimming above him. Likewise, Thunderhoof, Fracture, and Quillfire transformed into their vehicle mode and drove into the ocean. Once they all regrouped, a ground bridge portal opened up and allowed them to escape, just before the power plant exploded and collapsed into the ocean. Paris. All across the capital city of the EU, lights began to flicker off. Lights within buildings, homes, street lamps, virtually every appliance that was hooked to the city's grid began to shut down. The City of Light had just lost all its luminance. It didn't take long for concern and anxiety to sweep through the city as everyone asked around what the cause of this sudden blackout was, when they could expect the power to come back on. Some were already trying to walk back to their homes to keep their loved ones and valuables safe. Before long, however, every television in the city lit up, along with all the cellular phones. Any device that was capable of showing a video flickered on. What was seen first was the semi-shaded silhouette of Steeljaw, with the metallic Decepticon insignia on a wall behind him. "Attention citizens of Europia, we are the Decepticons," Steeljaw began to announce as everyone in the Paris listened. "You may know us as the Destroyers of Britannia, and we do bear that title with pride. Now begins our conquest of the EU. We have already destroyed your offshore power plant in the North Sea. Observe for yourself." The footage shifted to reveal the destruction of the power plant by the Decepticon team just moments ago. The entire facility lit with explosions before sinking into the water just as it was engulfed in a final explosion, destroying it completely. Just the sight of this alone put everyone into a state of panic. "Now you are all worrying that we will now wipe your nation off the face of the map the way we did Britannia, and that certainly is an option." Steeljaw continued as his silhouette took the screen again. "But, if we can avoid bloodshed by any means, we are willing to go that route as well. Europia's leadership has 72 hours to initiate a complete and total surrender. Your nation will assimilate into our cause, but you will keep your homes and families. There is no need for any further destruction. However, if you resist, I promise, we'll leave nothing left. You have 72 hours starting now, the clock is ticking, and let me just say in advance, welcome to the Decepticon Empire." This message was shown all across Europia via social media and television feeds. Even the WZERO unit, as well as the Black Knights and Autobots had seen the message from Castle Weisswolf as well, from either their personal cellular devices to televisions or computer screens. Each one of them looked with his or her own expressions of shock and/or anger. Lelouch in particular squeezed the phone in his hand as he glared hatefully at the Decepticon insignia that appeared on his phone's screen. Chinese Federation. Shink was quick to enter the personal chambers of Gao Hai. "You made sure you weren't followed?" the Geass High eunuch questioned. "I'm very certain," Shink confirmed. "What is it?" "It's time to enact the Prime Dragon," Gao Hai told him. The young soldier's eyes narrowed. "Were you found out?" "No, but the others are becoming suspicious. And I suspect Schneisel and Starscream may be catching on," Gao Hai said. "We can't waste any more time. They're planning to wed the Empress to the eldest prince of the former Britannia. That will bring the entire Chinese Federation into the Decepticon Empire without even spilling a drop of blood." Shink clenched his fists. Both out of the cleverness of the plan, as well as the fact that this would make the young girl, he swore to protect a slave of the vile Decepticons. "Shink, you must do it now," the Geass High eunuch told him. "All right." He drew his sword. "I never did like you, nor do any of the other eunuchs. But I will at least make it quick." Gao Hai nodded. "Long live Zero and Optimus Prime," he stated right before Shink decapitated him with his sword. Acting quick, Shink pulled out his Black Knight Autobot communicator, which bore the logo of the Alliance on its back. He pressed a few commands as the screen lit with the words, "Prime Dragon." Less than a second later, the communicator short-circuited before Shink dropped it. It hit the ground and burnt itself to a crisp. Suddenly, a pair of soldiers came bursting into the chamber, looking in surprise to see the decapitated eunuch. This traitor was attempting to contact the Black Knights and the Autobots. Shink quickly lied to them. He was intending on selling out the Empress to them, but I stopped him. No contact has been made. Inform the other high eunuchs immediately. Yes, sir, they said before running off. As of this moment, Shink, Kagaya, and Sayoko were now deep undercover in enemy territory. All forms of communication between them and their allies had been cut off. Optimus Prime would receive the signal to let him, and the others know what has happened here, and he will leave it to them to come up with a plan. In the meantime, he and his small team will do everything they can to keep up this facade and keep the Empress safe at all costs. Paris, General Smilla's office. Already the capital of Europia had descended into chaos. Rioters took to the streets with torches as families desperately tried to get back to their homes as quickly as possible. Those that already made it tried to board up their houses to keep the rioters away. It was absolute anarchy as the City of Light became illuminated by a different kind of light, the flames of chaos. The only building that appeared to be in order, at least in appearance, was the main military base, which was heavily guarded by soldiers and nightmares to keep the rioters at bay. Currently, 3 military officers were speaking with their general about what they thought should be done about this situation. We've received reports that the Eastern Front forces that were fighting against Euro-Britannia have begun to retreat. They're using this act of terror as an excuse to leave the front lines. What good would it do them anyway? This clearly the work of the Decepticons. The same abominations that obliterated Britannia. What are our forces going to do against that? They probably don't even think they need to invade, what with the chaos that is besieging our capital. The 40-man committee has already called for an emergency meeting. But our intel says some assemblymen are already leaving Paris. How could those cowards betray us? This is troublesome, General. But it might also be an opportunity. The people have realized that their government is weak. This could be the perfect time to make your ideals a reality. And with the backing of the Autobots and the Black Knights. The new aristocracy is full of greedy capitalists. General Smillas, Europia cannot survive if it is continually exploited. It's time we have a revolution. We're ready. Just say the word. Smillas said nothing at first but contemplated what his subordinates had just said. He agreed with virtually every word they said. Between the approaching Decepticons, and the incompetent capitalists in their own homes, Europia won't survive. Maybe it was time to enact his, Joan of Arc, plan. Euro-Britannia, military compound. Everyone watched from the central screen as the city of Paris continued to fall into chaos, while Steeljaw smirked at his handiwork. You know, one of the greatest scientific minds of the Decepticon cause noted the irony, that the only logic to humanity is its natural inclination towards chaos, and I can see Shockwave wasn't mistaken. Steeljaw said, take away those laws and rules, and humans don't even need a push before bringing out their own violent nature. It's actually kinda cute, he chuckled. Damn him. Andrea Farnese cursed as he and the other leaders of Euro-Britannia all glared at the Decepticon, even Maribel clenched her fists. The only one who didn't harbor any feelings of resentment appeared to be Shin, who only smirked as he saw the chaos continue to unfold on the screen. Duke Valaine's, this is where you come in. Steeljaw told the Grand Duke. Order your armies to advance while the iron is hot. But Steeljaw, if we march on Europia now, surely you're aware that countless innocent people will be caught in the crossfire. Duke Valaine's protested. I know, that's the point. Steeljaw replied. What? Godefroy stood up from his seat in rage. You would purposely endanger innocent people who can't even defend themselves. Maribel protested as well. Steeljaw gave a slight chuckle. Why are you against such an idea? You are Britannian after all. That's what you people have done since the beginning. I mean, you would know, wouldn't you, Maribel? He spoke to the red-haired princess directly. You were among the most ruthless of Britannia's commanders next to Cornelia. Against terrorists, rebels, soldiers, people who could actually fight. She exclaimed. I would never endanger innocent civilians. Are you sure about that? What about massacre Princess Euphemia? Steeljaw recalled with a sneer. She seemed content with a one-sided slaughter. Say one more word about my family. I dare you. Maribel stated, her eyes glaring with pure hate, the sigil of a Geass manifesting in both her eyes. Steeljaw shook his head with a smile. For those who claim to serve Britannia, you all seem rather soft. Which is why I am now taking command. As of this moment, Euro-Britannia is under complete control of the Decepticon Empire. Naturally this did not sit well with Euro-Britannia's leadership. What? You cannot do that. Who the hell do you think you are? You dare to betray us. Don't act so surprised. You had a feeling this would happen eventually, didn't you? Steeljaw looked toward Duke Valaine's as he glared at the wolf-like Decepticon. Oh, and if you're wondering if the House of Lords are gonna find a way to come and help you, don't bother. Because by now, they're already dead. What? Valaine's eyes widened in shock. Inside the massive chamber that was the main meeting place for the House of Lords, over 100 men and women of nobility status laid butchered across the ground, walls, and balconies. Their limbs and bodies dismembered, blood and organs splattered every which way, it was nothing short of a bloodbath. And in the center, stood none other than Arachnid, who flicked the blood from her hooked hand before licking some of the blood that dripped down from one of her spider legs. She noticed one nobleman, who had lost his right leg and left arm attempt to crawl away, only for her to smirk as she drove her spider leg into his back and finish him off. Politics, councils, senates, all that stuff, I just don't see the point in it. Steeljaw said casually. A single authoritarian or military society is much simpler and should work much more efficiently. No noisy politics or anything of the sort. You didn't. Andrea looked toward him in horror. We already have. Like I said, Euro-Britannia is ours now. As Steeljaw announced that, a pair of explosions erupted from the walls on the left and right side of the chamber. A total of 7 Viacons emerged from the massive holes and aimed their energon blasters at all the little humans below, ready to blast them at a moment's notice. Before Duke Valaine's could even say anything, a sword was drawn toward his neck. He, along with everyone other human present, could only look in shock at the man who was wielding the blade. You would be wise to surrender, Duke Valaine's. I think it's time for a new regime. Shin said with a sinister smile. Shin, Duke Valaine's couldn't believe this was happening. I knew I couldn't trust you Shin, but this, how dare. Her Geass activated in her left eye, only for Shin to activate his just a second before. Maribel, please kneel, Shin commanded. His Geass was able to activate first and that was all it took for the sigil to fly from his eyes and directly into hers. Once it was done, Maribel kneeled before Shin, much to the surprise of the Euro-Britannian leaders. I will do as you command. Shin smirked. So, she has a Geass as well, too bad she was too slow at the draw. I've only ever used this to kill, it's my first time controlling someone like this. Steeljaw had some good ideas after all. Don't worry about your princess, we have special plans for her. Steeljaw chuckled as those among Euro-Britannia could only look in dread, realizing that in the span of only a few seconds, they have just lost everything. Euphemia, I pray that you and your allies are able to somehow survive this coming storm. Duke Valaine's thought. Later on, just outside the base, a massive door opened up to reveal a gigantic human-made floating vessel that would put even the likes of the Avalon to shame. It may have been roughly less than half the size of a Cybertronian's vessel like the Nemesis or even the Ark, but it was still an imposing ship, nonetheless. This was the Gallia Grande. Standing on top of the vessel as it began to ascend into the air was Steeljaw's pack, consisting of himself, Thunderhoof, Arachnid, Fracture, Underbite, and Quillfire, alongside Skybite. For a meat bag vessel, it's not half bad. Fracture commented. It will suffice nonetheless for the revolution. Quillfire said. I could probably eat this thing faster than I ate Nuon City. Underbite added. Arachnid rolled her eyes. We get it. You ate a city, you don't have to keep advertising that. EYYU, what's next? Thunderhoof asked Steeljaw as well as Skybite. We pretty much run this meatbag country now, we're gonna steamroll over the other guys or what? Not quite yet, Steeljaw replied. We still gotta deal with the Autobots and Black Knights here. They're the bigger threat. I don't exactly like the idea of putting defenseless humans in danger like that to get their attention, but considering humans have been killing each other before we even arrived to this planet, it shouldn't be anything new to them. Skybite stated. You going soft on us, Sharkticon. Fracture said with a sneer at the last comment, which earned a glare from Skybite. I just prefer to win a battle against a strong enemy. Skybite clarified. That way it feels more earned. Stomping on somebody weaker, not so much. And I understand completely. Steeljaw accepted. But this is the best way to get our enemy's attention. He accessed the comms. How are things on your end, Shin? Grand Duke Villains and the other order heads have been detained and are being escorted to the nearest prison as we speak. Shin reported. Maribel is prepared as well, but the Glinda Knights have all vanished, as have Ashley and the remainder of his team. Must have prepared for a possible insurrection and given her allies a plan. I'll give the princess credit, she's clever. Steeljaw commented. No matter, continue as planned. Euro Britannia is ours, and soon our enemies will fall. He said with sadistic glee, brandishing his claws. Castle Weisswolf. Gathering outside the Autobot vessel, the Ironwool, the large group of allied Autobots, Black Knights, and WZERO operatives all gathered as Lelouch, Layla, Ultra Magnus, and Elita 1 addressed everyone present. The Decepticons have made their move. Lelouch stated. With the destruction of the North Sea power plant, the European capital of Paris is in chaos. The military has already declared martial law in an attempt to quell it, but this also leaves the nation vulnerable to invasion. So, we got any army of Decepticons coming in? Smokescreen asked. It doesn't look like it. Layla shook her head as Ultra Magnus walked up with a holographic projector in hand. However, satellite surveillance has shown a massive floating vessel heading straight for Europia. Ultra Magnus showed a three-dimensional hologram of said vessel, the Gallia Grande. It's man-made as opposed to Cybertronian, but it does appear to have Cybertronian modifications such as outer weaponry. We haven't been able to get a view of the inside, but it's safe to assume that it either carries weapons or a small army. Either way, this vessel is a threat. At the same time, however, it could also be a trap meant to lure us in. Elita 1 said. You think that Khan from the video is trying to set us up? Rio asked. Sounds like something he would do. RC confirmed. We've met Steeljaw before, and he's as unpredictable as they come. But this vessel is still a threat, isn't it? Suzaku asked. If we destroy it, maybe we could attack it from a distance. Colin offered. That way, if it's rigged to blow or something, we wouldn't get caught in it. We don't believe the ship is the only threat. Lelouch said. It's obvious it presents danger, but it's also too obvious, even for a trap. So, there's something else going on. Sideswipe guessed. Perhaps they're trying to divide our attention, split us up. Strongarm suggested. Is there a way we can get into contact with our spies in Euro Britannia? Claus asked before turning to Euphemia specifically. I mean, you did say you were contact with Duke Highland over there. I've tried, but I've gotten no response. Euphemia said, looking down with worry. Cons must have already taken over. Bulkhead said with a growl. Can't we call reinforcements? Shirley asked. Maybe Optimus and the others. That is no longer an option. Ultra Magnus revealed, much to the group's surprise. It's not just here with Europia and Euro Britannia. The enemy has made their move in the Chinese Federation as well. Optimus and everyone else must remain on standby to monitor what's going on there. Elita continued. Looks like we're on our own then. Orpheus said with a weak sigh. Listen, this may indeed be a trap, but I believe we have a strategy that could turn the tide in our favor. Layla revealed. We'll send a strike team to the ship and trigger whatever trap Steeljaw has prepared for us. But it's not just Steeljaw you should be worried about. Aikido spoke out, taking a step forward. I see, you're worried about your brother, aren't you? Sarah asked, to which Aikido only confirmed with a single nod. If he's involved, we will do everything he can to ensure there are no survivors. Aikido clenched his fists. So I will go. By yourself? Ayano questioned. No way. Gino protested along with everyone voicing his or her own opinions against such an idea. Layla looked especially worried. Even Ultra Magnus was against it. I cannot condone sending a single soldier into an obvious trap merely to trigger it. The Autobot commander stated. Aren't you supposed to be a commander? Aikido questioned to Magnus. It makes sense. If only one soldier triggers the trap, then the entire army can intercept whatever plan the enemy has in store. But you are not considering any alternatives. Ultra Magnus commented. He's not doing this because it's logical or anything of the sort. Lelouch said as he stepped closer to Akito. He's doing it because he's scared. He's scared of going through that kind of hell again. Suddenly, Akito threw a punch toward Lelouch's face, much to everyone's shock. Lelouch, Nunnally gasped. Everyone else was about to break it up, but Lelouch held his hand out to prevent any of his friends, bot or knight, from stepping in. You're afraid, I can see it in your eyes, Akito. Lelouch told him, resulting in Akito throwing another punch, much to everyone's surprise, but they still held back as Sarah, Colin, Bumblebee, Magnus, and even Alita looked with serious expressions. I recognized the fear, the same fear I've felt before. Another punch was thrown, but Lelouch didn't stop. But facing that fear alone is only going to get you killed, and there are plenty of people here who don't want that. Just shut up, Akito exclaimed as he punched Lelouch once more, but he stood his ground. Already Akito was out of breath as Lelouch wiped the blood from his mouth. Let your friends, comrades, and those who care for you, help you. That's what we do, Lelouch told him. That's what separates us from the likes of the old Britannia and the Decepticons. We can beat them, and we can all walk away. But you have to trust us. Akito said nothing, nor did he make any move other than turning around so nobody could see the fearful and emotional expression on his face. I hope you're right. Horai Island. Optimus Prime stood alongside Ratchet and Ironhide as Toto, Ogi, Cornelia, and Wizard all gathered together on the bridge of the Ark. For those who do not know, Shink has initiated the Prime Dragon Protocol. Optimus revealed. Which means, we can't communicate with him or Lady Kagaya now. Ogi said. Guess the Khan's got something going on. My brother, most likely. Cornelia assumed. Schneisel was always one for subtle and complicated plans. But that's not all. Ironhide said. It looks like the Decepticons have already began their conquest on the EU. Seems like they've already taken over Euro-Britannia. It certainly did not take them long. Toto said. And if both of these events are occurring simultaneously, it means we cannot spare any of our own forces to help Lelouch and the others. I am confident Lelouch, Ultra Magnus, and Alita, along with their allies can handle the situation in the EU. Optimus replied. But yes, we also have to maintain a close watch on the Chinese Federation. If the Prime Dragon Protocol has been initiated, it means Shink and Kagaya will be working with those closest to them to begin their coup. Wizard determined. And we need to be ready to move in and support them at a moment's notice. Cornelia understood the situation, yet at the same time, she couldn't help but worry about her siblings on the other side of the world right now. Yuffie, Lelouch, Nunnally, Rai, please be safe. But there is one other matter we must attend to. Optimus said. Tai, if you would. The Ark's artificial intelligence manifested in the form of a human girl once more before speaking. We've just picked up a new Cybertronian signal deep within the Sahara Desert. It's far from any human settlements, but we can determine the signal is that of an Autobot. As she spoke, the screen popped up to reveal the map of the Sahara Desert with an Autobot signal beeping in and out. As a team of Autobots? Or even a ship? Ogi asked. Actually, it's a single Autobot. Tai revealed, much to the group's surprise. I can't identify which Autobot it is though, the signal has been heavily modified. But that might also tell us who it is. Ironhide said. And if it is who we think it is, we need to move and retrieve him as soon as possible. We've organized the team that would be best suited for this mission. Ratchet added. Hopefully we'll be able to pull it off before the Decepticons find him first. Optimus, I'm sorry to protest but, with the situation we're facing right now, can we really afford to send anyone to rescue a single Autobot? Cornelia asked. I know we're already outnumbered, and we need all the help we can get, but still. It is not just to aid a fellow Autobot in distress, Cornelia. Optimus said to her. If this Autobot is indeed whom we believe him to be, the Decepticons will be all the more motivated to capture him. During the war for Cybertron, he and his entire team were captured and remade into potential weapons of mass destruction. And if you think it's that serious, we can't afford to let this slip by. Toto figured out. Yeah, suffice to say, we need to be in that desert, yesterday. Ironhide confirmed. I've already called for the people that we need for this rescue team. Tai revealed. We should be ready to be deployed within the hour. With that in mind, be prepared. We leave as soon as possible, Optimus told the group present. Everyone soon nodded and left the bridge, aside from Wizard. Is there something the matter, Wizard? Yes, the masked man confirmed. A while back, Oz contacted me and asked me to do some digging on 2 specific individuals in the EU and, there is something you should know about one of them. General Smillas, he's not the man we once thought he was. Geass order. VV walked into Shockwave's personal laboratory, where he appeared to be working one of his many projects. You wanted to see me, Shockwave? The immortal asked. I was recently contacted by Megatron. Shockwave revealed, keeping his back toward VV. One of our agents Euro-Britannia has made contact with an individual that bears a Geass, one not granted by CC. He then turned around to face the boy, gazing down at him with a single red eye. Did you form a contract with a human named Shinhyuga Shang? One look into his eye made VV back away slightly. He had not forgotten all the experiments and methods that had been used to kill him over and over. Though he couldn't be killed, it was a harrowing experience he had not wished to go through again. I've never heard of him before. VV quickly exclaimed. I don't remember forming a contract with someone named Shang. Shockwave then gazed down even deeper. Is there anyone else like you? Any other code bearers besides yourself and CC? No, there isn't. Not that I know of at least. VV stuttered. I mean, if there was anybody else, you would have learned about it via the psychic patch you and Megatron put me before. Hell, you would have learned of this Shinhyuga Shang alongside Maribel. And I wouldn't have had the chance to form contracts with anyone else after that since you've been monitoring me 24/7. I find your reply to be logical. Shockwave accepted, causing VV to breathe a huge sigh of relief. Though this is also concerning. The possibility of another code bearer that neither you nor your late brother are aware of could cause us a great deal of trouble. Our forces in Euro-Britannia have already made contact with Shang. I will contact Megatron and requested that Shang be brought in for questioning. Even VV silently agreed with that. He'd like to meet this Shinhyuga Shang himself and learn how exactly he got his Geass. He did not like the idea of another rogue code bearer out and about either. CC alone caused enough problems when she met Lelouch and the Autobots. Suddenly, Shockwave's instruments lit up like an alarm. Already the Decepticon scientist began attending to them. What is it? VV asked. An Autobot signal, Shockwave replied as he analyzed the signal. Heavily modified, one I am greatly familiar with. He turned toward the immortal boy once more. VV prepare the Dark Knights, as well as the Dark Queen and any Dark Pawns we have at our disposal, including the headmasters. You and I will attend to this matter. Both of us? VV asked in surprise. Is there something particularly special about this Autobot? It could either be a powerful weapon to aid our cause, or a great hindrance. Shockwave replied. Either way, it must be dealt with immediately. Do as I say, prepare our forces. As you wish. VV bowed before leaving. Shockwave turned to the screen again as the Autobot signal was identified. It has been a long time, Grimlock. And this at the end of Season 2 Part 5 of this What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.